Councilmember Lau?
Present.
Councilmember Crosby?
Here.
Councilmember Carter?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Present.
Mayor Hepburn?
Here. We have presentations tonight. We have Inland Valley Humane Society and the SPCA presentation. Mr. Russi, would you like to introduce?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We have Nicole Bresciani and the Operations Director, James Edwards, that are here to do a presentation. I asked them to come and just kind of give an overview of the Inland Valley Humane Society, the partnership that they have. They've been a partner of the city for gosh, how many years has that existed?
Yeah.
Quite a while. Yeah, predates her and I. And Nicole took over about 2 years ago as the director, and I thought it'd be good to have her come for the benefit of council, as also just to share what their responsibilities are for the benefit of the residents. So with that, Nicole.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr.
Thank you for
Mayor,
being here.
Council, staff, community members. Inland Valley Humane Society and SPCA has been in existence for over 70 years. City of Laverne is one of our original partners, along with the City of Pomona, City of San Dimas, City of Chino. We have a very strong partnership, and we are a private nonprofit 501c3 based in the City of Pomona. We service 11 municipal contracts, ranging from Mount Baldy all the way down to 91 in Green River. We also service the unincorporated areas of San Bernardino County. We have one sheltering contract, but otherwise it's full service animal care and control. What that means that full service is that we are a full access shelter, so we do not turn away animals. We do managed intake, but we will not turn away an animal for behavior issues or because it's not attractive and we can't adopt it. So those are some things that happen in the private rescue world that don't happen in full access shelters. For field services, we provide 24-hour field service operations 7 days a week, and after hours calls are after 9 p.m. Those would be emergency calls. We have contract veterinary services on board in case we need to take those animals after hours. Otherwise, we have in-house veterinary care. We also provide adoptions and redemptions in-house, licensing, which we will talk a little bit about tonight. And we have a whole breadth of programs and services that we offer, from low-cost microchipping, low-cost vaccination clinics, which we just had this last Saturday at our facility. In the past, pre-COVID, we had come out to our communities and offered those low-cost vaccination clinics. We hope to get back to that at some point, but right now they're offered every month. The first or second Saturday, what was this? I was on vacation, so excuse me. Second Saturday of the month at IVHS in Pomona. It is first come, first serve. The lines are getting longer as we start to transition with COVID, and we recommend that people who have relationships with their private veterinarians, they still continue to take those animals, because this one that we just had this Saturday, we cut off the line at 10 o'clock, and we weren't done until almost 5 o'clock. So that tells you how long that line became, and it's an added value that we provide to the community. IVHS embarked on Getting to Zero in 2015, which was getting to zero euthanasia of healthy treatable animals. We reached that goal in 2017. The goal was to get there by 2020. In the world of no-kill, what they call no-kill is something we don't ascribe to. We don't use that terminology, but we do not euthanize any healthy treatable animals. We have partnerships throughout the state of California, all the way up into the Pacific Northwest. And we leverage those partnerships to do adoption transports, work with local 501c3 rescue groups to try to maximize those live outcomes to ensure that the animals are not staying in our care any longer than necessary. So we leverage local and regional partners as well. We also have corporate partnerships with Petco and PetSmart and Katie's Depot right here in Laverne and throughout our service area, and we do adoption partnerships with them for cats. So something that we're very proud of. In January 1st, 2021, mandatory microchipping legislation was enacted in the state of California, which means all animals that are redeemed from our facility have to be microchipped. The good news is that there's an onboarding process and a waiver period that the state gave shelters so that they could come into compliance with that, because it's an affordability factor. They had to get those microchips. We were already doing low-cost microchipping, and we were already doing them as part of our redemption package and our adoptions. So it was a very streamlined process for us to continue to follow state mandate. Our shelter received an assessment back in September of 2020. We had a partnership with Maddie's Fund and the University of Florida, and we did that through their shelter services management program. And they came out and did a full shelter services assessment to try to help us understand the pros and cons and things that we were doing great and maybe some areas that we need to improve on, so that those were internal improvements that we did. One of the highlights that they came out with is that we have a successful licensing program, something that they don't see nationwide. So that's positive for the cities and revenue. Humane Heroes we launched during COVID. Obviously, we had to rebrand and find our way to connect with the community that was not necessarily in person. So we launched our Humane Heroes program, which is targeted toward children and families, got them engaged on social media. Those of you who are on social media might have seen that we reached over 12 million TikTok views on a TikTok just recently on a veteran adoption. The veteran happened to have an amputated leg, and we had to amputate the dog's leg, and so it ended up being a match made in heaven, and they ended up partnering and being able to take his dog to work. So that's a success story. We also handle wildlife as part of our field services, something that some of the other agencies don't do, and we actually made it viral and went to the dodo, those of you who follow animal welfare, on our rescuing an owl from a glue trap. So those things are kind of nasty, and unintended consequences happen. But in addition to field services, just the general domestic calls that we receive, stray cats and dogs, we also have the traditional dog bite quarantine. We will actually quarantine them at our facility. We do a breadth of field services in addition to disaster relief. So if you have a wildfire, we will help in the evacuation efforts. In addition, we will do off-site temporary sheltering. We've done that for a number of communities and will continue to be available. We have transport units, and we actually have a brand new horse trailer that we bought because in light of the Chino Hills and Diamond Bar fires that we've had to evacuate a lot of equestrians. So we launched last year the Itty Bitty Kitty Project, which is a shelter kitten diversion program. A lot of people don't know that when they see little kittens in their backyards or in the neighborhood to leave them alone. Unfortunately, they try to help and be good Samaritans, but by doing that, they remove them from mom, and they cannot survive in the shelter environment without mom. So in addition to that program of an education campaign, we also have improved our foster program and added additional foster families. So that's been good because that's added additional life-saving measures. Home to Home program is a rehoming tool that we launched, a partnership. So that's actually an online rehoming tool where if you have a dog that, or a cat, or any animal that's allowed in your particular community, you can go on and submit an interest form. You submit the information. We screen them because we do screen them for, let's say, dog bite behavior issues. If the dog may be a little bit hard to handle, so just behavior issues, but not a dog bite, we will put those on there. But if there's a history of biting, that's a public safety concern, so we usually refer those to come into the shelter and let's have a conversation. But that rehoming tool helps to divert animals away from the actual shelter environment. It's 100% free. There is no money to be transacted, so I'm sure some of you have heard on people going on Craigslist and going into parking lots and exchanging money and sending money abroad, and then they send part of the money and they never end up getting the animal. That doesn't happen here. We're connecting people with other people in the community, and you can search far and wide. Even if you're not putting an animal up for adoption, you can actually adopt through that program, and it is free to adopt and free to place. As I mentioned, we do have low-cost spay and neuter programs currently happening. We also have the Pit Stop and the Chihuahua Challenge, and then the Big Meows for cats. Those are all $40. So if you have animals that are a pit mix, pit bull, or chihuahuas, those happen to be the number of animals that we see in abundance. Otherwise, it's based on weight and size. The average spay and neuter is about $200 to $300 at our facility. It could range up to $700, $800, $1,000 plus outside. It is a first come, first served basis, and obviously we're limited in our current footprint of our vet services, so we do still recommend people to reach out to other low-cost providers, and they are out there in the community. One of the things that we're excited about is the launching of our new medical facility, which we are under construction now. We finally got out of the ground, and we actually have dirt moving on top. We are slated to be open winter of 2022. Of course, as you know, with COVID-19, staffing shortages at cities, delay in supply chain, that has pushed back initially we were already supposed to be open, and then it turned into spring and fall, and now we're winter. So We don't imagine any more delays, and as much as we need rain, cross your fingers that we don't have as much rain and we'll be there. That's going to enable us to provide more service, more added value to the residents and the communities that we serve, and it will continue to only be available to the residents in our communities. Another thing, and the last thing, before we talk about canvassing, is we are launching, once our medical facility is open, we will be launching the Canine Pilot Program with the City of Laverne. The Board of Directors has chosen the City of Laverne to be our first pilot program test case. So we will be providing vet services, basic vet services, to the canine unit or units. I understand right now there's one. And that will happen once the medical facility is up and running. So that's exciting. So moving forward with licensing, because that seems to be obviously always the big question, big ticket question. This is actually what our notice looks like when we go out to canvass. It's English and Spanish. There's information. It'll have a specific sticker on yours that's tailored to City of Laverne. And there's information on the cost of the license and what to do for submitting your license. One of the exciting things that we did was we launched a new software program. It's not without its glitches. It's not without its heartaches, right? Anytime you have a new software program. But it enables the resident to have a better customer service experience. They get to create a portal, create their own online account, just like they would with any kind of municipal billing. They can go on there. They can add pets. They can take off pets. They can track when their renewals will come in. They can add their rabies information, et cetera. So that partnership with our new software company started on August 1st. Residents can mail in, they can go online, or they can go over the phone, or they can come into our facility. But we recommend that they do all of the others other than come into the facility still. We do require masks from anybody visiting, and we do have them available if somebody forgets. We will be canvassing the City of Laverne in the fall. So coming up in the next couple months, we will be out here. What happens when we come to a door is that because it's COVID still, we will be doing a contactless canvass, which means we will be placing this on every door, regardless of whether or not you have a pet in our system, because we're not looking at the system. Typically in the past, we would look at who has a renewal, who has an expired license. If you had an expired license, we would post on there your license expired on such and such a time. We would post it on your door. We would come back several times to check that you have either left us payment, or we would track our online system or the mail to ensure that we got that payment. We don't do that in a contactless system. We blanket canvass the entire community. So if you have a resident that gets one of these and says, I don't own a pet, then just simply discard it, keep it as a souvenir, but you don't need to do anything. There's no actionable item on your part. If you have a door tag and you go to make an online payment and you say, I think that I fall into the category of an unaltered animal, and you submit a payment, the unaltered fee is $100. And you tell us, you submit your information, and we see that the dog has been on your property for more than a month. You technically owe a license, depending upon how far, if it's a month and a day, it's fine. But if you have had that dog for 5 years, you technically owe a license for last year if you do not have a license. So what we then do is assess a penalty. So a lot of times people will submit their payment, and then they get a nice notice from us that says you still owe X, or you did not submit your proof of rabies certification. So we ask for that information. So people just need to read what's being sent back to them if they do get something in the mail. So that does add to some confusion. Today we were processing some, and I noticed that somebody actually was trying to pay us twice. I mean, I will take somebody's money, but we will send those back. If they don't owe money, all we're asking for is proof of rabies. Licensing is a state mandate. Rabies control is the state mandate. So of course you would not want a rabies epidemic. There are countries that we are not allowed to import animals from right now. There's a lot of rescue partnerships that try to do good work, but unfortunately because there are rabies cases coming in from other countries, they don't allow that. So it is important for everyone to have a rabies vaccination for their dog, for their cat. We have had rabies and distemper in wildlife, and you are abutting up to wildlife, and so we ask that everybody do their due diligence and make sure that they license their animals. So we will be coming into town soon. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for Ms. Bresciani?
Close enough.
That's close. Any questions? No. Just a real quick one. So basically you can do everything online now, but you're talking about the fees. So if you were to have a COVID animal that you got during COVID, and obviously there was no way to get them licensed, not to say that I am, but just to say if that happened.
If you know somebody.
If I knew somebody
Yeah.
really close to me,
Yeah,
um,
like 2 doors down.
yes. Now, you would go ahead and pay the fine, so say it's $100, then it would be whatever it would be 1 year. You don't go back 3 or 5 years, you go
Right,
back
we
1
go
year.
this year and last year.
Okay.
So we do not go back 3 to 5 years. We simply stick with this year and last year.
And you just download the rabies and the neutering
so
or
you
whatever,
will-
rabies, neutering, all those certifications, and
Yes.
just send it to you guys with a
Yep.
check, and we're good, or credit card, and
Yes,
good to go.
and you can do that even on, if you're doing a renewal, you can even put your credit card information if you don't want to send in a check, but vice versa. During COVID, we were taking payments, so you could still license, and we were doing rabies and other vaccinations, so you could have still, but I do recognize, and we have people call us and we will work with people. Some veterinarians have reduced, obviously with staffing, they've reduced appointments. Maybe they couldn't get in time, and so they're missing the cutoff by a couple dates. Absolutely, but we don't know about those unless somebody works with us. We have almost 1 million people that we service in our community, so if somebody's sending in a notice and they're like, they keep ignoring me. No, you don't keep sending me the right stuff. So it's just a communication aspect.
I really appreciate that, because it's, pets, as COVID has been so tremendous on everybody as far as being locked down. The animals have been wonderful, so that's good to know. Also, pay close attention to the door hanger to make sure that you
Yes.
follow the instructions very well. And also the zero euthanasia is really great. You guys do a great job with that. We really appreciate that for all of us animal lovers out there. So, any other questions, or? Mr.
I would
Rossi?
just like to pay a compliment. As council is aware, several weeks ago, we had a report of one of the ponds at Sierra Laverne and some of the problems we were dealing with. Nicole's team was out there the next day and were instrumental in clearing out the fish that had fortunately died, which was the origin of a big part of the smell, and have been in coordination with Fish and Game and some of the other agencies. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Can
Thank
you
you
do
very much.
anything about coyotes?
So I think you guys still have wildlife whistles. Okay, so you can give those out at any event you'd like. So, we do get a lot of calls about coyotes. I actually just had one in my backyard yesterday, and I live in Huntington Beach, so they're everywhere. The reality is that we are living with coyotes. You're not going to stop people from feeding cats, which is a very big source of having the coyotes come to your neighborhood. But what I would encourage you all to do, and any of the community members, is to encourage people who are going to feed feral cats or community cats, that you bring in the food and you don't leave too much food out to where it's an overabundance. And even if you have a bird feeder, if you leave out the food and you don't ever pull it in and there's droppings there, they will come, and they will come to go for they're predatorial, so they will go after the rodents that also come near. So you will not stop the coyotes from coming. However, if somebody has a situation where they have an aggressive coyote or increased coyote sightings or behavior, please give us a call, because we will come out and do a yard audit. And it may not even just be your yard. We may be checking the neighborhood. We typically check the neighborhood also. And we will do education in the neighborhood. People will see coyotes with mange. I want to be very clear. We are not fixing mange. Even if we could get a whole bunch of rehabbers to free up some space, which they don't have space, they could treat mange and get mange again. They live long lives with mange, and it looks horrible, and you go, oh, they must be suffering. They aren't. They're surviving. So there is nothing you can do about that, but yes, we are coexisting, so if there's anything that we can do to help, we will take coyote calls, so please just call us. If you just see them running down the street, that's completely normal, even in broad daylight nowadays. They're making dens in our backyards, so people who have dense property, overgrown shrubbery, so we just need to be mindful of that. And, sometimes we have seniors that can't afford to do the necessary remedies, and we will help that. Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you what you do for our community.
Thank
you. Do we have any announcements or upcoming community events from anyone?
Not that I'm aware of.
We move to the consent calendar. I understand that the tobacco ordinance was pulled from the consent calendar. Is that correct, Mr.
Item
Rossi?
D was pulled. We have an individual who'd like to speak.
Item D was pulled. So we'll go ahead and,
Approve the rest of the consent calendar.
do we have any questions or comments on the consent calendar minus item D? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, sir.
Actually,
Nope.
we have the voting board now.
You get to use the
Oh, I
voting board.
forgot.
Remember your
We're not on
directions,
Zoom
everybody.
anymore. Let's see if I do it right.
I know, right?
Yes. I know, it sounds ridiculous, guys, but at least it worked. Okay, so now we move back to item D, and we have,
Yes, just for a refresher, item D is ordinance 1100, which was regarding the banning of flavored tobacco. If you remember, we had to pull it from second reading because as we reported, the exclusion of the existing hookah was not included in the text. So we just needed to bring that back for a first reading. So we're not going to go through an entire presentation, but somebody did request to speak on the item, so we pulled it.
and it looks like JR is ringing that person up right now. We're going to open up the public hearing now for this item. Well, just public comment, excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a hand raised and the attendees. The person that asked for us to call them, they went straight to voicemail.
Well, we can go to the audience right now. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to
Also,
speak,
there's public comments that emailed to us too.
but are they going to speak on that? That was
No,
just
I'm
an
just
email.
saying, I
Yeah,
just
there was,
wanna make sure
I thought there was two. Was there just one?
We have one.
Email.
One person calling. That is.
If anybody wants to speak on public comment, please help yourself out, state your name and your address, if you would, or fill out a card.
Is that maybe on?
Is that my phone?
No, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. This is Frank. I'm calling from One Stop. You know, the reason I'm talking, I'm talking about the tobacco, the flavor ban. If you want to vote for it or you want to talk about it today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Just good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor. Just I want to talk about something today. Before you guys make your decision about this tobacco flavor and this kind of thing, just I want you to know, guys, just if a decision like this taken, you think the problem is going to be fixed. The problem never be fixed because everybody who using it or who smoke it, going to go buy it from one block from Pomona, from Glendora, from anywhere, from online. The main problem is still the online, still not fixed. That's just, the reason, if this decision like this is taken, nobody gonna lose, just us and the city, because you're gonna lose more people going out of business, more people in closed business, more empty store in town, and the city, I don't think she can handle more people leaving the business from all this kind of thing, and for something, never be gonna be stopped. This thing is gonna be everywhere and anywhere. Everybody he can get it from everywhere because online is open for everybody. So nobody gonna lose, just like us, like a small business, because we live. This is our life. This is our income. Just I don't know. Just I want to just talk with you like a human. This decision. I don't think it's gonna be, if it's taken, it's gonna be fair for something. Guys. Anyone he can get it from anywhere, from another town, from another city, and if most of the states still it's open and everybody, all the states, nobody complain about it, because in the main thing, like I told you, it's the online thing. Just I want to let you know, this decision is gonna put the city more down, because you see most of the city now start getting building empty, stores empty, because we dying from too much stuff going in the town. Just I need you, just guys, to stay like behind us like a small business, and that's it. And I appreciate if you guys think about it for a couple minutes, for this decision. And like I told you from the beginning, this stuff, anybody, he can get it from everywhere, from anywhere, because this stuff never be stopped. Just because, you know, we're not like our town just is gonna be, because this one, most gas station are gonna close. Everybody gonna close, because this is, tobacco flavor, every kind of thing, 60% from all the people who work with this kind of business. That's gonna be, it's not fair if this like decision go through, you know, it's gonna be too hard for us. And thank you for listening to me and give me the chance to talk.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment on this?
Looks
No,
like
no.
we have somebody else.
You do?
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, you have Anthony Miranda on the line.
Good evening, Mr. Miranda. If you could please keep it to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
You didn't do what? I'm sorry.
If you could please keep it to 3 minutes, we would appreciate it.
So I'm glad, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm the chairman from the National Latino Officers Association as well as the National Criminal Justice Partners Coalition. I know that you have a bill pending about banning tobacco use. I wanted to take the opportunity to stress a few things for you. When you are now banning a product, it is definitely something that we have seen in other states already that has grown in the illicit market. The illegal market has now taken over the spacing that you have. In the current environment, the products that are for sale are in a controlled environment, which you have limited access to children and minors as well. So when you take the ban the way you're doing it now, while there be no specific things that says for enforcement purposes who is going to be enforcing the ban, generally speaking, it'll eventually fall on some type of law enforcement intervention. When we have that type of situation, you create unnecessary contacts between the police and our community residents. So we caution you in this respect. The proper mechanism for anything that has to do with some type of addiction or abuse would be the education, treatment, and counseling, which is what we talk about most often: education, treatment, and counseling. When you're banning a product in this way, then you're going to get to the process of criminalizing this type of behavior. And I think that, again, puts us in a precarious situation where you're putting your residents unnecessary contact. Like the previous person who spoke said, that when the products do not become available in a controlled environment, they will become available in the illegal market. When that happens, again, it's going to be move into a criminal justice realm. Again, it doesn't improve the situation. It doesn't help access to those products. It actually puts it more in danger for the youth, and as well as the older population that uses both menthol products and some of these products that they use during this time period. What you're going to be forcing is an older population of people to purchase these products, again, illegally on the street, placing them in more danger and a precarious situation. So I would caution you not to pass such a type of ban. And I'm running up the time now, a type of ban. The focus, as we are doing and trying to teach people around the country, is the education, treatment, and counseling portion. Cigarette smoking use, the products have all gone down over the years. It's not something that increased. But when you take, again, of course, you're taking these products out of a controlled environment where you're checking IDs and making sure there's limited access, and you're now placing it into an environment where there will be no control mechanism available whatsoever. And then you're going to be endangering the youth, and they'll have greater access to these products on the street. So I understand there's great concern about the abuse of these products. I understand there's great concern about our youth. But again, solving that issue doesn't make a ban on everyone else. We probably say most statistics will show you that the use of these products have been declining over the years, and we should rely on the techniques that we have been using, which is the education, treatment, and counseling to solve that issue.
Mr. Miranda, your time is up. If you could finish.
Okay. Yes, listen, I'm a law enforcement officer with over 20 years of experience. I've been Chief of Police Administration of Children's Services, and I function in a number of law enforcement boards and capacities. So it's giving you a different perspective from the law enforcement community. No law enforcement officer wants to be involved in the enforcement of bans on cigarette-type products or the products that you're banning right now, flavor products. They don't want to be in that business. They should be in the criminal justice business.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda. We appreciate your time.
Mr. Mayor, we have Myra Batista.
Ms. Batista, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just wanted to add, my name is Myra Batista. I'm with the National Tobacco Association and outlets, and just want to make sure a few things. There is the state Senate, there's a state bill coming up, SB 793, November of 2022. That's only a few months away, about a year and 2 months away. If there's any way that the city can really consider waiting for the state and letting it be uniform and being a statewide ban, if that's what the voters wanted. And if not, then you can always do you can do your own law after that or have it ready. That's number one. Number two, please consider that there's also inventory and there's also leases that you're looking at with the retailers right now. So if you do, or if you're already determined to pass this, then think about that, and I would say give them at least a year for enforcement date to get rid of their inventory and to make their leases are not going away. What the two gentlemen said before is really true. There are 3 studies that are out. I think we sent a letter with the links, but I can send them out. And there are 3 studies that prove that the cities that have banned, it has not improved, it has not reduced the youth or anyone smoking. It's just making people move around to different cities. And this is not a fair, it's more of, it seems like it's, most of the retailers are all minorities, and they're almost being targeted and losing opportunities just because a law in your city, but the cities around are not doing the same laws. So please, at least think of the retailers, their leases, their inventory, and extend the date to a year enforcement. That's not, this has been going on for years. Tobacco has been being sold for years. You can't just do an enforcement date 30 days from now or 60 days from now. It's not going to change much, but it will make at least the retailers have a heads up on what's going on. And also, if you need any links or any help from us, the representing the retailers, we are more than gladly to produce that, so you can see that the studies are out there and they're independent studies. They're from schoolings, FDAs. They're showing that it is not working. So thank you very much for your time, and please consider just waiting for the state.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you perfect.
Okay. Great, you've got 3 minutes. This is Ruby Corey.
Ms. Corey.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rima Corey. I'm General Counsel for Fumari, a premium hookah tobacco manufacturer, and also one of the founding members of the National Hookah Community Association, which was founded to protect and preserve the rich cultural tradition of hookah. On behalf of the National Hookah Community Association and the many Arab, Armenian, Turkish, Persian, Indian, North African, and other minority groups that comprise our members, we thank the City of Laverne for its consideration of the 1,000-year cultural tradition of hookah and the minority business owners that represent the hookah community. We also want to, the association and its members have the same goal as the City of Laverne, to prevent youth access and usage to flavored tobacco products. Together, we desire to work together to achieve this end by encouraging best practices, education of retailers and lounges to ensure compliance, education of the public to discourage youth usage, and strong enforcement to existing laws to eliminate bad actors. By working together, we can achieve our mutual goal to keep tobacco products out of kids' hands. The cultural tradition of hookah is greatly misunderstood, as it is foreign to many. It is our organization's hope to educate lawmakers and the public of what it is and what it isn't. Hookah is an adult practice which is a centerpiece for social and celebratory events. Many people who have immigrated to America have brought their cultural tradition with them and still practice it today. It is a unique tobacco product which has deep cultural roots in tradition, much like the Native American peace pipe. Thank you again for your consideration and respect for protecting our right to practice our cultural traditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't see any other hands raised. The good news is the city's regular email service appears to be back up, so we have been monitoring both that and the temporary one that we advertised on the website, but I don't see any other hands up. I don't have any other email requests to speak on this item.
If no one else, anybody else, we're going to close public comment. We're going to come up to the dais. Is there any comments or questions regarding the tobacco ordinance?
The only thing I'd like to point out is that the effective date, even though if it gets adopted, is the first of the year, so that concern that was raised
January
is something that's
2022.
in consideration.
And the other thing I'd like to say, too, is the gentleman that spoke about education and counseling, our Youth and Family Action Committee plans on doing that. We get back into our meetings in September, and we've already talked about what we want to do with the education with the schools to, speak with the kids. So that is in place.
So you just need a motion to waive reading in full and introduce ordinance 1100.
I have a motion.
I move to, I'm sorry, one more time.
To waive.
Waive reading in full and introduce.
Waive reading in full and introduce the ordinance number 1100, flavored tobacco ordinance.
And I'll second that.
And we will go to vote. Oh, there you go. Motion carries. We will now move to, we're going to recess our council meeting, and we are going to move to the Laverne City Council recess to meet the Laverne Public Financing Authority, following which the City Council will immediately reconvene.
And with that, I will turn it over to JR to give the presentations on the mobile home park budgets.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Tonight, you're meeting as the Joint Finance Authority instead of as the City Council, as this is an item that I bring before you each year. You actually have, with this action tonight, the minutes from last year to approve, because that's how often that we meet. It's typically just once a year. Although I will say we did meet the latter part of last year to renew the agreements with Haven Management. So that's the item that you'll be approving as well. The larger ticket item is the respective budgets for the two city-owned mobile home parks, Laverne Mobile Country Club and Valley Rancho Mobile Home Parks. The respective budgets are put together by Haven Management staff as well as the Mobile Home Park Liaison Committee members, which includes Mayor Hepburn and Mayor Pro Tem Davis. It is important to note that the budgets are independent of the city's funds. They operate based on the revenues that they generate and require no other assistance from the city's general fund. For Laverne Mobile, revenues are expected to be relatively flat with an estimated 3% increase for space rent. Included with this year is $20,000 for painting the main clubhouse, as well as $25,000 related to refinishing a significant portion of the pool deck. For Valley Rancho, expenditures are similar to previous years. This year, funding is included for improvements to the park-owned office building as well as the adjoining manager's unit. Staff recommends the Laverne Public Financing Authority adopt resolutions JPFA 6.1 and 6.2 approving the annual operating budgets for Laverne Mobile Country Club and Valley Rancho Mobile Home Park. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know that John Davis and Katie Davis with Haven Management are here as well.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Davis or staff, JR, at this time?
JR, when we vote on this, we vote on it separately, one for Laverne Mobile and one for Valley Rancho, or we do?
We can do one.
I know in the past we've been able to do them together.
Just together.
And did we approve the minutes?
No, we need to do that.
No. So we have to approve the minutes first. We have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from November 15, 2021, or 2020.
And I'll second that.
Yes.
Then we go ahead and vote. Right, motion carries. Do we have any questions for staff, JR, or for management regarding the proposed budget? Then we'll open up the public hearing. Do we have anybody on the phone? Oh my God.
There are no hands raised for this item. We did not receive any email requests either.
Do we have any speaker cards on this issue? We do not. Anybody wish to speak on this, please come up to the podium. No? We'll go ahead and close that, and we'll come back to the dais. Council, any questions or comments on this item? Then we need a motion for both items. Is that correct? We can take one motion for both.
I move to approve JPFA Resolution Number 61 and JPFA Resolution Number 62.
I'll second that.
We vote. Got it right this time. I want to personally thank Haven Management. You guys are doing a great job. I know that Councilmember Davis and myself are on the committee with you guys, and it just, we're moving forward, modernizing, using the funds we have. You're very good at holding the purse strings tight. It seems like the community's happy. We don't get a lot of complaints, and that's a wonderful thing. So, and the parks are getting better and better. So, thank you very much.
I concur with the mayor. I think you guys are doing a beautiful job. Thank you.
We will close. We will now close the Public Financing Authority, and we will adjourn, and we will open up the City Council meeting back up again. We'll reconvene the City Council meeting. That will bring us to other matters. Agreement for Fire Chief Resolution Number 21-63. Mr. Russi.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As the council and the community are well aware, we have been in search of a permanent fire chief for some time. We have been fortunate to stitch together a series of interims to help us manage through this time, and I am happy to report that we have identified and brought about an agreement to bring in a very capable candidate to lead the department. Usually department heads would fall under the management and benefit executive management resolution for the terms of his employment, and while most of the terms of his employment do fall under that, there is one exception that is being requested that is outside the bounds of that authority, and that is that of severance. So as it relates to the individual salary, vacation and sick leave, his health insurance, those are all within the authorities that are currently bestowed on those positions. And the distinction is in the severance that's being asked for, and I'll talk about in a minute. Before I do, I want to at least help the community understand the process that we followed through the selection. We had a technical committee, we had a public committee, we had an association committee that all interviewed a select group, and we were very fortunate by the number of candidates that we received that were frankly from across the country. And those three panels in the assessment center all identified 2 individuals that were then advanced to the council and the department heads for an interview process with a recommendation to me. And those two second panels both were unanimous in their decision in who we should move forward as our next fire chief. And that individual is Chris Nigg. He is currently a deputy chief in the city of Fullerton, has over 20 years of experience, and certainly has the background and I think the experience to help move us forward as we go to this next step. So look forward to the execution of this agreement for that purpose. Essentially what is being asked in addition to the terms that have been identified is 1 year of severance for any reason other than cause that he is separated for. The two distinctions to that are as if there is interference with the chain of command or department communication, he would be able to exercise that compensation as well as if the city were to contract with another entity for fire services. He's certainly coming in and has expressed with the desire to be our chief and be our chief for going into the future, and kind of address some of the issues that we have been faced with. So, with that, I look forward to the opportunity, and I want to thank Councilmember Crosby as well as Mayor Hepburn. They were two of the individuals that, the council individuals that I worked through to work out the final essence of the terms that they were in support of. So I'm pleased to bring this forward and hopefully gain your support for it.
I think the other piece you missed, you talked about the three things, but the council also was part of another committee as well.
Sorry, that was the two, yeah, I thought the two individuals, department heads and council, interviewed. I may not have been clear on that. Yes, thank you.
So we'll bring that up.
Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions for City Manager Russi on this issue? Then do we have any public comment on this, JR?
We have not received any emails requesting to speak on this item. If there are those participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, and obviously those here in the audience, please fill out a speaker card and approach the podium if you're wanting to speak.
Nobody would wish to speak on this out in the audience? We open up the public. Mr. Gavaldon, if you could state obviously your name, which we already did, and your address.
Please add it to the card if it's necessary. Just a quick point of clarification, since I plan on speaking later on a point that seems relevant to this, is the request for severance in the event that the city decides to go to county, that kicks in as well? That's the question that I'd like to have answered.
Thank you. Any other questions you want to answer that right now? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on the matter? And we have no one in the queue. Then we'll go ahead and close. We'll come back to the dais. Would you like to?
Yeah, so the question, as I understand it, was if we choose to contract, yes. The way the terms are specifically worded is that if Chris stays through when the conversion occurs, so if the decision were made to contract with any other agency and stayed through whenever that conversion were to take place and the keys were actually turned over to the new operator, then at that point he would be entitled to a year's severance for that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for staff on this? Councilmember Carter.
A comment for me is it's been a long process, and I'm excited to have Chris start, and I welcome him. And also for an opportunity for everyone to meet him, can we invite him to a later meeting that he could be introduced to everyone in the community here?
Well, that's a great segue. Because what we will be doing is adjourning this meeting to 6 o'clock for a badge pinning ceremony that will be only for his invited guests. We will be televising it out so everybody can celebrate it that way, but given the limits that we have. But we will be doing a badge pinning at 6 on September 7th, followed by our regular meeting starting at 6:30.
Good, Mr. Davis.
I guess I also have a comment in support of this. I think it's a good thing that we're moving forward with the chief for the fire department. I want to thank, it wasn't an official committee, but I want to thank the fire negotiation committee of Mayor Hepburn and Councilmember Crosby for your support in making this happen as quickly as it did. I think that in this case, the committee structure really supported the effort moving forward so that when the council reviewed it, we had a full an integrated package to look at. So thank you for that.
Mr. Crosby?
I'm just about to say about time. It's the city's been way too long with interim fire chiefs, and so about time that we have someone down.
Councilmember Lau?
I just want to, again, extend my thanks to both Mayor Hepburn and Councilmember Crosby for their work. This has been a long road, and I am looking forward to good things coming in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Lau. This is way overdue. Our community has been torn apart for many years now with the fire department, and it's time to rebuild and put somebody in those shoes that can rebuild. And hopefully this gentleman's going to come on. He's young. He's got a lot of experience, and as I said, all of us interviewed, and thank you, Mr. Crosby, for the as far as the contract review, and Mr. Russi. I know that it's been a long road, but our community deserves this. They deserve a fire chief, and they deserve a fully functioning fire department. And it has not been functioning well lately, and hopefully we can rebuild this with the SOC, standards of coverage, and then if this fire chief requests what he needs to make this work well, then that's what we're going to do. I don't know, I did do a minute with the mayor. We actually, on the Ascent calendar, we did purchase a fire truck and we purchased a brush truck. So that's the first step, but you need bodies and you need capable bodies to be put on those. So hopefully this chief can get us back on our feet, and we can all work together as a team, and that's what's very important for this. So I'm looking very forward to this. I do support this. And that, no other discussion, we need a motion.
I'll be happy to move Resolution 2163 in agreement with Christopher Nigg confirming his employment terms as the city's fire chief.
Second.
Second it.
Thank you. Vote, please. That was quick. Thank you, everybody. That was a long process. Thank you
Faster
all.
than roll call, that's for sure.
Thank you all very much. This next item, item B, the mayor is requesting the city council review Assemblymember Holden's office recent review of a constituent's request for state auditor's independent audit of the city of Laverne. I did pull this last night because after reviewing, this has been going on since September 8th of 2020, and as you can see right here, it's a bit of work. And the only reason I want to pull is the fact that I wanted to put a study session together that we could review this as an open discussion with our community to see what happened, what was discussed, what Assemblymember Holden had stated, and what the council had stated. I think it's very important for transparency, open governance, and to see if this is the direction our community wants to go along with the council or not go for a free audit by the state controller. So and that's why I wanted to pull it, because I feel that it's too much information. I think we need to post it so we can all digest it, and then we set up a time where we can all sit in the public and discuss this as council and also as residents. This is a lot of work here. It took a lot of staff time. I'm not going to say it hasn't. I know that a state audit is free, but it's not free to the city. It does require a lot of work by the city staff. I understand that. And this really has to be based on policies and procedures and some items that a constituent brought up that they're of a concern of mine, but we're also a concern of Assemblymember Holden's. But Assemblymember Holden was not going to do anything unless the city was engaged, the council was engaged. That's not what they do. They recommend and they help. He will help us if we want to do a state audit. If we don't, then the matter is closed, as he has stated. But I felt that it was just too much information. So I was going to pull that. I have pulled it, and we'll bring it back at a later time. Council.
There was a comment there, because I was with and met with Assemblymember Holden, and Assemblymember Holden, taking notes, his comment to us after reviewing and going through the steps was that the city is in perfect control of its finances. And I was part of the subcommittee that met with Assemblymember Holden, and he said that was the end of all this as well, because of going through those documents when we were given them. This bringing this back up even to that point was not his view when we were even meeting with him, from his exact words to us.
Again, Assemblymember Holden is not going to tell us to do a state audit. He's going to let us review that. There were many issues there, and many issues that that some of the cities have gone to a state audit, and it has benefited the city. As is stated, I know that this is probably not correct. Out of 450 cities, 450 being the best, we were slated at 116. Now, I understand, Mr. Russi, that that's not correct. We're in the 160th of cities that have, is that correct?
We believe somewhere in that range.
So 35%-ish or whatever around that area that would be nice to have an audit. And as Assemblymember Holden has stated multiple times, he considers the matter closed because of the fact that he's not going to get involved in our business. He wants the council to make that decision and the city to make that decision. And as Assembly member, I wouldn't want to do that either unless the council had, they wanted to support to have a state audit. You know, the matter is closed, yes. But if we wish to have a state audit, there are issues here. There were issues in contracts. There's issues employee retiree gifts. There was one with Chase's Restaurant, but that's in litigation, which should not be discussed. But I think at the end of the day, his comments were, at the end of a state audit, the city's in much better shape to move forward because of the fact that the audit will show some things, whether it's purchasing policies, where it's procedures, how we do it. Our employees here, and I want to make this very, very, very clear, our employees follow the rules that are stated down that they have for them, and they do a very, very good job. And yes, we have audits, but that's an airbrush audit. It's an audit on what principles we use right now. Our staff, down to the cent on receipts, credit cards, anything that's issued, whether it be PERS, whether it be purchasing anything. I look at the review the bills every month, down to the notes that you didn't turn in a receipt, I need this before we'll approve it. We do an extremely good job. But not to say that we're not perfect, as Mr. Holden stated in his letter. No city is perfect. And even Mr. Lyons, Matt Lyons, his deputy assistant, no city is perfect. It's not a bad mark on us. It's just if we're doing some things on our procedures and policies, maybe we can do better. Maybe we have a few issues that we can change. Don't be afraid of it. This is a state audit. This is free. Yes, it costs us with our employees. And that's why I'm bringing it back up, and that's why we're discussing it. Mr. Holden said the issue is closed. The only reason the issue is closed is he's not going to put himself in our city to demand an audit unless the council wants to do it and approves that, and he will help us any way his office can to make that happen.
Okay, I'd like to clarify on that. Rick and I, so the public understands too, is Rick and I are the legislative committee appointed by the council. And we met via Zoom with a council, Assembly member Holden. And because this was after the fact that he already requested materials of what Tim just spoke of with the items. And so our staff pulled together the information. Once we sat down with him and talked to him and said, no, let us know what your interest is in this and where we want to be able to explain what's going on. And so he said that he had all the documentation in front of him, that we sent him, our staff, and that he was satisfied with everything in front of him and he felt everything was clean. He said, if you choose, he said, nothing more will come from me because I'm satisfied, but if you choose to do a state audit, that's up to your council. I will not intervene. That's just something everyone's entitled to. So I just want to clarify that Holden was satisfied with what financials, paperwork we gave him to show him that everything's in order. We have policies and procedures in place. And so he felt nothing more would come from him. So what Rick and I did is that we asked for a letter to come to us to clarify that this happened. Now, the letter that we received that is pertinent to exactly what Holden said was from Catherine Del Rosiero. And so we have that. And so my question is that we've had audits every year. We all get a questionnaire after the audit that asks us, do we have any concerns? It's, I think, 2 pages long. We just did one for this year. 2 pages long asking us, do we have any concerns, any issues, anything we'd like for them to look further into? And so if we did, that's when we would put it out there. We could ask our own audit firm to look further into any item that we would like. So, but that's never happened. So, you know, why aren't we using our local resources if you have a concern?
In addition to that, I would simply say, Mayor, if your concern is about policy, you and I are the Finance Committee. We can modify the policy to address the issues that you want to address. We don't need to go through an audit to do those things. So I'm at a loss as well to understand why we would go to a sledgehammer approach of having an audit when we've had 9 or 10 years of clear audits. I was told that this last year we had one person question some expenses purported to be around the mayor, but other than that, like you were saying, you've been reading the warrants for as long as you've been on council, and we've been having clean and clear CAFR audits. So I don't see the need to go to an audit. If indeed that you want to, what you really want to do is modify some of the policies that we have in finance to address some of the issues that you're concerned about, whether we have retirement gifts and have an allotment for that or whatnot, then I think you and I can do that in the Finance Committee and then bring them to the council. I don't believe that we need to go through an audit for that purpose.
And I would just ask Mr. Russi if you can confirm. We, as many of you know, we did just hire a new finance director, and part and parcel of her job as the new finance director is to observe what is going on within our budgetary practices and find efficiencies and manners in which to make our city better. And she's another set of eyes to determine whether or not things are being done appropriately or not done appropriately. And so, Mr. Russi, if you could speak a little bit to what the expectations or what the agreements are with this particular staff person in terms of our finances, that would be appreciated.
Yes. So Marla Pendleton is her name, and she's our Director of Finance. As you know, we brought her in a couple months ago. And she brings both coming from the county auditors, prior department in Riverside, then moving to Pasadena, and then Lawndale before coming to us, all in a finance role. So she brings a myriad of experience from the municipal finance world. And one of the things that I was pleased by bringing her in is that she brings that experience and she can take a fresh look at some of the procedures that we have and see what improvements can be made. And that's one of the things that she is actually tasked with in her first year. She's looking at how our purchasing procedures are, making sure that if there are things that we, even with their own finance structure, that they could do a little bit better or within the department, she's going to recommend those changes. But that will take over the course of her first year because as things cycle through. But that's fully one of the charges and expectations I have for her in the role.
And to Councilmember Davis's point earlier, would it be appropriate then for the Finance Committee to potentially convene with her to talk about any changes to policies and to help guide any policies that may need to be changed in order to make us more efficient or better?
Of course.
Again, it's a state audit. It's by a state mandated audit, which means that the fact that they go into our system without anybody in staff, this is a state audit, it's free. They come in and look at all your books, they look at how you do your processes. Maywood was one of them. As a result, City Council allowed numerous financial and administrative problems, such as the city's failure to maximize revenue, its lack of most rudimentary internal controls to remain uncorrected. Other problems involve inadequate accounting and financial reporting caused by the former city manager's failure to implement fundamental internal controls, thereby exposing the city to risk of fraud or errors that would not be detected. City of San Gabriel has not always adhered to policies requiring competitive bidding contracts. As a result, the city contracted exclusively with certain vendors for many years without seeking competitive bids from other firms to evaluate their services and costs. The city's purchasing policy requires formal competitive bid process for contracts worth more than $15,000 and notes that the contract should generally have a maximum term of 3 years. The State Contracting Manual, SCM, which provides guidance for managing contracts to state agencies and identifies government contracting best practices, also recommends that contracts for services should generally not exceed 3 years unless the contracting entity can provide a written justification for longer term. Reduce it here. Nevertheless, by failing to seek competitive bids from other waste collection companies to evaluate proposed collection rates, city cannot ensure that its residents and businesses are paying competitive rates. I mean, it's just basically controls, contracts. Not to say that our new person that came in, I want this above us. Somebody else outside the city. It's free. It takes staff time. We have nothing to hide. I'm not saying we're doing anything wrong. I'm saying that our process and procedures can be better. Maybe our investment strategies could be better by a state-mandated audit coming down and letting us know what we're doing to make sure that us as residents are only paying what we have to pay for good service. We're doing exactly what we need to do with all our financial, with all of our accounts, with all the different accounts, the financial accounts we have in the city, to make sure we're doing it correctly. Not to say we're not doing it correctly, but there are the competitive bids for the waste management contract. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It was wrong. I think that we should have gone out to bid. And basically, one of the emails, this is to Mr. Russi from, I think it's from Matt Lyons. Assemblymember Holden believes that the purpose, authority, and expertise of the California State Auditor routinely provides valuable assessments for California cities that is willing to advocate for the city of Laverne. He understands that during the May 18, 2020 City Council meeting, the Council considered Mayor Heffern's request of a forensic audit, which the Council discussed but did not authorize. Cost, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the already stretched budget were noted concerns in Council comments during the May 18th meeting. The evaluation and assessments from the State Auditor are broader and more comprehensive in scope than previously deliberated forensic audit. Specific to the Laverne constituents' request, the California State Auditor could also evaluate, assess, and make recommendations on contracting practices, management and administrative performance, financial viability, compliance with state and federal laws, testing key management and administrative controls. Before making any final decisions, Assemblymember Holden prefers that the matter of the state audit be placed on future City Council meetings' agenda so that the Council can discuss, deliberate, and formalize a majority Council recommendation on the California State Audit option that is available as he remains a committed partner to the well-being of the city community members. The constituent has been informed that the Assembly member's preference would like to have this matter agendized for City Council attached to the background information. It's a state audit. It's free. Understand that why would we have them do an internal audit when we can have a state auditor come in? It's free. That was the biggest bone of contention when I first brought it up. It's too expensive. It's $30,000 to $70,000. It's no wrongdoing on anyone. We don't have to be afraid of jobs. It's just the point that maybe we can do it better, and maybe we should have the state auditor come in and do
it. It's not being afraid. We spoke with Assemblymember Holden right after that letter. We all wrote a letter to have a meeting with them, and then that's when we decided to go to our subcommittee. You keep bringing up the waste management contract, but over reviewing the waste management contract, our city of Laverne is paying at the bottom of the comparable cities around us, while even including the mandated cost that's going to be coming up in January that's already included in our price, and how we are lower than everyone else. I believe that was a great deal that our city did through the waste management bidding contract process. I am not in favor. We're not trying to hide anything. This is not any conspiracy or anything like that. What this is we have passed our audits, and we go through many audits every year. We even won an award. And even comments from everybody up here on the dais is how well our finance department has done every time the audit comes up as well. So putting through more items and getting through just to clear the air or from a campaign slogan that was what people ran on, I don't believe we should be putting the city through.
Well, I want to clarify a few words that were used earlier, and I know you mentioned it, but I want to be extremely clear for those in the audience that it is not a free audit. While the audit would be conducted by the state, that does not relieve the staff of the necessity of having to cooperate and spend staff hours on doing this additional work. And for those of you who sat through the study session or have seen or have followed what's going on in the city, we have a lot of other issues that need to be dealt with and handled that should be taking priority, especially and in light of the fact that we have had multiple audits over the course of years upon which this council and other councils have all approved without any question, without any debate over if there was anything wrong in any of those audits. Furthermore, and I will have Bob Russey clarify if I'm incorrect in this, those audits are not audits where we get to pick and choose what we provide to the auditors. The auditors randomly, throughout all of the documentation, through all of the finances, they decide what they want to look at. So if there is some huge conspiracy theory that somehow we have someone brilliant enough on staff that is hiding things, that is somehow usurping money from the city, I just don't buy it. And I think it's a little bit rude, to put it nicely, to the staff to say in one breath that we think they're doing a fantastic job and give them kudos for the awards that we've received in this area, and then to turn around and say, despite the audits that we've all approved, despite the fact that we've won awards, despite the fact that we're running better than many cities around us, despite the fact that 2 council members on this council met with Assemblymember Holden, staff provided hundreds of pages of documentation, and the Assemblyman said, I find no further questions, you're fine. That this would be the issue of priority when there are so many other things that we need to be concerned about. And so for me, I cannot be in support of this. The documents have been made available. You're always welcome to look at them. Staff will answer your questions if you'd like to contact them to talk to them, but to conduct an entire study session for this is not, I think, a prudent use of time or the best use of our resources considering what they are. I would remind everyone that we have a staff that works 4 days out of the week. And this is not 4 10s. This is a truncated 32-hour work week. And they are expected to do the work of a 40-hour work week employee in any other city, and they do a fantastic job of that. And so keep that in mind when you're asking for these things.
I would simply further council comments by saying a couple of things. One is, I think we want to address this issue tonight. We'll need to open it for public comment. But the one piece that you said, Mayor, which I really hit me hard, and I think would hit our staff hard, is when you call these audits by the independent auditor airbrush audits. I think that's disingenuous. I think that belittles the accounting and auditing industry, as well as the auditor that we've hired to come here. I think it also sheds light on your actions as a person who reads all the warrants and looks at the audits and the books yourself. So you've been knee deep in this. So I find it challenging when you say that these audits that we have every year that we have to affirm are airbrushes.
First of all, the CAF award is a very good award, but the point is those audits are on what we have in front of us. That doesn't mean that the policies and procedures that we have are not right. It doesn't mean that our contract policies are not right. Okay? As far as I said, I stated very clearly that this audit is free, but it does take staff's time. I understand that. But don't our residents deserve to make sure that we know that our policies and procedures are being followed and we're not spending more money than we have to? And I'm not accusing anyone in the city of stealing money. Those audited demands and everything they do are almost perfect. Almost perfect. But the point is that maybe our policies and procedures aren't perfect. If Assemblymember Holden looked at this and said, I'm closing this issue because he is not going to have come down on a city, even though we're rated 160 out of 450, because he doesn't want to come and put his business in our business unless we want his help. That's what they're there for. Our electeds are for that, to protect the city residents. And I'm not saying we're doing anything bad. Our policies and procedures. And Mr. Davis, yes, we did go over the policies and procedures. Those policies and procedures, I still feel, even though we have adapted them and changed them, some of the contracting part of that, we're not following like we should be. 3 to 5 year contracts, more information on waste management. Give me contracts from 3 other carriers. I want to know exactly what they pay. And if you don't go to an RFP, you're never going to see that. You must go request for a proposal. They must break it down by nut and bolt on these contracts to see what we're paying. Our staff does a great job. I want to make that very, very clear. The point is, the airbrush comment is the fact that an auditor comes in on what you have in front of you. A, B, and C all calculate. They all flow out because everybody's following the procedures. They're calculating. Every fund is where it's supposed to be. Every fund interest rate is supposed to be. Every audited demand is where it's supposed to be. We do a great job. Christy probably is so focused. She does amazing. But the point is, this has nothing to do with the city. This has to do with the state audit coming in and just looking at our finances to make sure that our residents, that our city, we're functioning properly. We're following all the procedures and rules of the state. That's all.
Well,
if you guys don't want to do it, that's fine.
I'm simply saying that if it is a financial policy issue, then you and I in the finance committee should dig in with our finance director and go through those policies. And I want to see more reason why we need to go to competitive solicitation on all those pieces.
And I want to see what the state mandates. What does the state mandate? What are the rules and laws and regulations? I don't know those. I never get that information. I have to do the research myself.
As do I.
Well, and you know what? That's not right. We need to know what those policies are and why those policies are, why we're not going out competitive bids, why we're not doing that. We must, for our residents, be open, transparent, and we must, every nickel that we spend has to be accounted for, and we're getting the best cluck for our buck. And if we're not, then we need to change our policies and procedures.
And I don't think anyone's arguing that there's always going to be room for improvement. You and I have had this conversation, that nobody is perfect and there's always room for us to improve, but I don't think that the state audit is the vehicle for that. I think that you can work with Muir, and I think that would be beneficial to have you work together then to figure out what policies and procedures can we deal with? What can we do to be better or more efficient? What is the research surrounding the surrounding cities saying how they do things? What is best practices? And I think you can effectuate that by working with the city manager and with the city finance director to do that. But I don't think the state audit, when it is not mandated, when it is not required, and given our history, I don't think that's the vehicle. I agree with you that we can always be better. We will never argue on that point.
I want to know what the rules and regulations are set down by the state, period. End of discussion. I understand what you're saying. And that's where an audit comes in. All of us have a lot of friends out in the community now, but also elected officials that you ask questions to. We have a policy in the city that we've been discussing. Not one of the 5 cities I've talked to, they say, absolutely not, we never do that. That's just an example. I'm not going to go into details, but the point is that let's follow the procedures that we're supposed to do, that's all. And I'm not saying our city manager is doing a bad job, anybody else. It's just the fact that a state audit will open it up, give us the information we need, and put us, if we have changes to make, put us on the right track. That's not my profession. I'm a contractor. I'm a business owner. I am not an administrator when it comes to the state way we do our business, way we do our funds. These cities are a machine that takes a lot of effort to push forward. It takes a lot of our residents' money to push these cities forward. And where all that money goes and how it's distributed and how our policies and procedures, we need to be spot on. We just need to be spot on. We need to know exactly what we're doing. Guys, you don't want a state audit, that's fine. I'm still in support of it. I pulled it off the agenda because I thought it was way too much information for our residents to digest in 36 or 48 hours. And do with what you may. You can argue this till the day is long, but the fact is I'm never going to change my mind. And about a campaign promise, no. I came in as mayor of this city, transparency, open governance, a voice of the people, and I will to the day I'm unelected or elected again, I will continually do that. And that principle on a forensic audit, we don't have one now. It's a state audit, and it's free. Not free to our employees, but it's free. Why not? Just why not? I think we better. Do we have anybody for public comment? Oh, right here. Mr. Gabaldon. Well, we'll try to keep it to 3 minutes if we can, please. But
I will. I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. Today I come before you to ask you to agree to support the citizens' request of the aforementioned forensic audit. This should be an especially easy decision for you, as it would be for provided for free. Some might argue that there would be a cost and the time required of the city staff to support such an audit. I'd argue that if everything is in a good order, such effort would therefore be mitigated and minimal at the scope of things where the benefit would outweigh the cost. Given the events over the last few years relative to the financial crisis the city has experienced and is still under stress to remain viable for the community it serves, this is a reasonable request where a larger lens will be put on the city finances, considering the pending future budgetary needs of emergency services for Laverne at large. Where the city asked of its taxpayers to accept Measure LV, the city has not provided the services it promised, or at least at the levels advertised. Much of the savings realized by the city and expenses come from this reality. Also, this would be irrespective of whether emergency services are city provided or contracted with the county. It would seem to be appropriate and prudent that the citizens of this community know that this monies have been invested in their city, have been spent judiciously and consistent with not just policy, but a reliable stewards of the taxpayer's dollar in a wholly transparent manner. Unlike the scenario events leading to the financial crisis revealed in 2017-18. At that time, city council members Hepburn, Carter, and Davis stood watch from the dais and remain on the council today. Additionally, as determined by the California State Auditor's Office, we currently rank 117th as of today on the website out of 453 cities in California, or in the bottom third of the risk of default. The ranking is still deceptive and significantly better than it might otherwise be, if not for the burden taken on by the taxpayers to mitigate the risk of default when accepting the liability of a $54 million obligation bond issued in 2018. The audit could potentially reveal opportunities for improvement, getting us closer to our adjacent city, San Dimas, who sits at 379th, or the bottom quartile of those cities bearing risk. In closing, the city and its citizens deserve to know how their monies are being managed to meet present-day expectations of taxes, along with the future obligation of at least $35 million in taxpayer liability for that bond. And if there's any risk that in this time it will be revealed to become a greater burden in how the city will remain viable without additional tax measures to make those payments. As stated in the bond, failure by CalPERS to achieve its targeted investment returns or certain funding amendments to the CalPERS contract, which add additional value to any of the 5 plans in which the city participates, could also generate additional unfunded liability for the city. As mentioned earlier, 3 council members from the uncloaking of the city's financial challenges in prior years sit on the council today, and they will be able to use their vote today as a measure of their commitment to transparency in anticipation of their re-election in 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gabaldon. Danita Bokamp. Sure.
Hold the mic down. Hold the mic down so we can hear you. I want the mask to stay on.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I completely agree with you, Mayor. I think that this city needs to have this state audit and save the city. We're not looking at it from the right perspective. We're saving the city $70,000 from the general fund for the cost of this audit. Yes, it would include staff hours, and as Councilmember Lau said, there's other things that they could be attending to, but with an unforeseen economic downturn because of COVID pandemic, which is unfortunately still continuing, I think nobody, no city, no government could have anticipated what would have happened to that economically. And I think those are the things that make this so important. Again, you have been saying that from day one, that you wanted a forensic audit. No one on the council would second that motion for you. And I just feel like if there's no wrongdoing, then why not have it done? It sends a message that you're scared, that there's something there that you're trying to prevent the people from seeing. So yes, congratulations to the staff and all the awards that you've won, but today is a new day. Nobody knew about COVID. It's an entirely new environment, and we have to be prepared for the next one. If this continues on or some other pandemic that comes along, the cities have to financially prepare themselves to be in a position where it doesn't fall back on the residents. As Mr. Gabaldon previously stated, that Measure LV, we have not received any kind of report via the city website that shows what decisions have been made. There's no transparency there, and I realize that some staff received raises from those funds, which I'm sure they are deserving, but it sends a message of city first, not residents first. Residents, many lost their jobs, many lost their businesses, and we should be helping them. We should be helping the city as a whole, not just city employees. And as all of us know, retirement, CalPERS is facing some, potential liabilities, and we need to consider that as well. And how is that affecting the city? Plus, of course, the lingering lawsuit with the fire department. So I completely agree with you, and I wish that other council members would look at it from that perspective. I don't think it's a blemish on the city in any way, shape, or form, but there's nothing wrong with transparency. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Catherine Butler.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Hepburn. Mr. Hepburn, I request permission for more than 3 minutes, as my remarks are prepared, pertinent, and focused, and I think they have sufficient relevance for the additional time.
You are granted.
My name is Catherine Butler, and I live in the historic Lordsburg area, 3 blocks from the center of town. My home and my street is one of my greatest delights, purchased as a second home in 2017 to be near my only son and his family who live in Glendora, which is why I and 2 other neighbors had the initiative to stop the widening of White Avenue to preserve the history, tranquility, and walkability of the neighborhood. I'm from the southeast, grew up in a rural farming area, and have lived at 25 addresses all over the country in my lifetime. I have an undergraduate degree in English and theology and a master's in English, and have taught both high school and college prior to a career in corporate sales and marketing with IBM, Xerox, and BWIP. I've also had my own marketing consulting practice and done a number of entrepreneurial projects. Sorry that my voice is wavering. I have no experience employed with local, state, or national government, but I was the IBM rep to the city of Norfolk for 3 years, worked easily with their management team, and won a number of competitive bids. As a landowner and real estate developer, I've had 40 years experience working with the local county staff and commissioners, and was heavily involved in the same election efforts in the county. I've given all this background not out of an effort to impress, but to position my exposure and experience as it relates to the comments and opinions I will share. I don't pretend to be a governmental management expert, but in the wisdom of a country vernacular, I didn't just fall off the turnip truck yesterday either. I'm here to comment on my observations over the 4 years of the transparency, involvement, and effectiveness of the city manager and the city attorney, mayor, and council, and city government for the town of Laverne. In a phrase, I think the current administration lacks all 3. At issue tonight is the opportunity for a free audit from the state to validate or refute our city government's effectiveness of the public in execution of the public trust they have been given. I will be making some formal requests as the purpose of these remarks. I will be giving specifics and naming individuals not to name call or malign their personal character, which for the most part I do not know. I will focus on my opinion of their professionalism and success in their public role. In general, I think the recent election was a mandate from the people of the town for more of the 3 A's: approachability, accountability, and accessibility. Mayor Hepburn, whether you think he is a Rhodes Scholar or a village idiot, campaigned on and performed to that accessibility. His minutes with the mayor and his responsiveness to constituent requests have demonstrated a commitment to residents. My sense is that his door is always open. By contrast, the posture of the city manager and council has appeared to this external observer as opaque, insolent, arrogant, cliquish, and private club exclusive. While none of these things may be actually true, the appearance is also often the reality, and it is up to the staff and council to remedy that. I've approached Mr. Davis. I have appreciated Mr. Davis's willingness to be accessible, and he took the time to discuss White Avenue and was opposed to the city interest in widening and supported our position as logical. While I do not agree with him on every issue and have challenged what I see as ganging up against the mayor's position on many things, he is accountable to his informed and examined position and is always willing to talk. I have less appreciation for Ms. Carter as a result of her handling of the waste management contract renewal and her supporting her husband as the best choice for an oversight committee. No matter if he was as smart as Einstein or as moral as Jesus, Laverne is a small town, and having 2 members of the same family on council and on fiscal oversight takes the opportunity away from someone else to serve and just does not pass the sniff test of impartial government. It seemed to me that Mrs. Lau and Mr. Crosby campaigned on different messages and positions than they brought forth now that they are serving. Rather than independence, they seem to be the plants of the good old boy network of the former mayor and lack the effect they promised. Also, being fiscally conservative and socially liberal, I have failed to see some of the social problems and discrimination Mrs. Lau has brought from her university position and colleagues. Often it seems she brings the solution in search of a problem that seems to interfere with the town-gown split appropriate between the university and the town. They have been a disappointment as they game up on the 4-1 votes and seem to be merely kindred wolves in sheep's clothing. I had hoped for more. In the time since the last election, calls for increased transparency seem to be dismissed, discounted, or dodged, and that must not be the case with the city. The town seems to have a chronic bad blood between management and the fire department, and there's an indefensible difference in the management of police and fire, often thought together but not in Laverne. To have an issue and to a suit which costs the city millions of dollars is a failure of communication and a failure of leadership and management. Where were the city attorney and city manager to cool and resolve these issues before they stupidly ate up public funds? The city manager has had 3 positions in his career, it seems: head of Parks and Rec for Walnut, then assistant city manager under the previous Laverne city manager for 10 years, and then taking over as city manager to Laverne in the last 11 years. And all the time, he has not seemed to find it convenient to live within the town he manages. How can it be that one can evaluate services if one has never been the recipient? Both city manager tenures lend themselves to question as to the need for lifetime jobs of that nature. I do not pretend to have the exposure or education to determine if Mr. Russi is doing a great job or not. He does present a very polished and well-dressed appearance, and he seems to be enjoying a rather untouchable and unexamined tenure. This is never a formula for excellence. My sense that it is high time that Laverne promoted Mr. Russi into a larger town where the experiences of managing Laverne would have been valuable training and a stepping stone to larger responsibility. Perhaps we could then take advantage of some of Mr. Davis's corporate and business experience and long-term Laverne residency to make an excellent city manager and broaden the range of council members with another citizen. Now to the specifics that in the short time I have attended council did not agree with my sense of objectivity and care for the public trust. The most egregious was the awarding of a new 10-year, $60 million contract to Waste Management for trash collection a year and a half before expiration without a formal bid and a dismissive explanation that a bid would have cost the city a higher price. Why no bids when spending significant public dollars, and why not a 5-year contract, and why a year and a half early? In addition, in between one of the presenters at City Council and Waste Management staff, the public presentation was followed up by a wink or a leg pinch, which seemed to indicate far more familiarity than appropriate. In a word, the process seemed and looked rigged. It especially seems so when the prices for service have gone up, service discontinued without a price reduction, and an unending stream of bright, shiny new garbage vehicles all make a negative impression. To quote Shakespeare's Hamlet, something is rotten in the state of Denmark or Laverne. Whether legitimate or not, and Waste Management on the East Coast is rumored to be owned and run by the mafia, it just does not pass the smell test. From time to time, other items or management issues have seemed to have the air of impropriety enough for the staff of the state of California to offer to do a free audit to ensure management fealty and best practices. For this, we must have council agree, and that is the issue before us. If I had to guess, I would say the council will want to refuse on the grounds it will take too much of staff time, or that it will interfere with the business of the city. I would offer that such are intents to elude or divert any scrutiny into the inside workings of management and council. I would refute that out-of-hand city employees' job is to do the business of the administrative work of the city, and this is just as much a part of their work as anything else they would do. They are paid to serve the taxpayer constituents, not to decide what they will and will not do. In addition, refusing such an audit to me indicates that there's a fear of having a light shined on their practice and they have something to hide. If indeed they are doing as fine a job as they indicate, why would not they want the world to see their effectiveness? There are many other council and city management practices, such as arbitrarily canceling a meeting because there is no city business to handle. How does the city manager and council know that the city has no business? What if a citizen has an issue to bring? Though the payment of council is far from generous, and they do have a zeal to serve to do it, even if they were paid $1.93 a year, they are employed by the constituents to do the business of the city, not to arbitrarily give themselves a paid day off. And if indeed they know that there are slow times of the year, decide in advance when to reduce the number of meetings, not do it willy-nilly. In conclusion, I would like to quote Mr. Rusi's words 11 years ago when he ascended to the position about what he had learned from his predecessor. Russi said, and I quote from the public record, "It's been an amazing opportunity. I've learned more from him, not just on the professional level, but on a personal level, more than I ever imagined learning from an individual. I've been fortunate to have a good group of mentors throughout my career, but certainly working with Marty has taught me insights into how to make government even more accessible, even at the local level, being very upfront and direct with individuals, being the face of the organization, how to be accessible not only to the residents but to the staff. I would challenge Mr. Russi to live up to these words, allow and embrace the offering of free audit, and bring back that transparency that he said he learned how to provide. As I have previously said, much of what this council does seem hidden, cliquish, and opaque. Mr. Russi and council Much of the rotten stuff in the town of Laverne does not pass the smell test and is far from the 3 A's of approachable, accountable, and accessible. If you do not accept a free audit, you have something to hide. I would like my comments in entirety to be entered in the minutes of the public record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Joe Wetton. It's on the last, it's on public comment. Okay, thank you. We'll hold that. Yeah. Any other comments? Do we have anybody on the call, JR? Oh, we have, I'm sorry. Ms. Berry, please.
Sorry, may I have more than 3 minutes?
Yes, you may.
I'm having difficulty tonight. Okay, so we've heard what you think. And by the way, there's some hearing impaired people, so I want to make sure everybody can hear or read lips if they need to. We've heard what you think. I know what each of you think as far as this item. And now it's our turn. You were elected by the people, the residents, not to decide what's best from what your opinion is or what you think. You're supposed to listen to the people. Your opinion is to inform your decision at a lower level than what the people say. Conspiracy shuts down dialogue and closes off listening just by calling it a name. You need to listen. Laverne is below the median. We always talk about we're below the median in the costs. Right now we're below the median in the health of our city. We're not talking about is there fraud? Is there extortion? Is there stuff like that? There's errors. And the audits don't always show up everything because they go undetected. Undetected errors were what led to the letter to Mr. Holden. There were apparently an error as far as the policy on gifts. It was too much. And it went right past everybody. And it went right through audits. It was missed. As far as, oh gosh, even the whole policy on bids, there's other stuff that we don't know. And if your job is to help make this city the best it can be, then how does it hurt? It doesn't hurt to do this. It doesn't hurt to get input that will help us be better and move up, like said earlier, where San Dimas is. I mean, 160 and 160. Either one is far below 450. So there's room to work on this. Holden recommended that the city would benefit from it, and he graciously offered it at no charge. If free bothers you or no cost, it was no charge. The only cost is those hours. And yes, those matter, but not so much that you set aside what the people are asking. And we've asked over and over and over again. The resistance is what erodes the trust. What maybe there are people who have some conspiracy theory, but it is not that, okay, we're fine the way we are, we're healthy, we're good, the thing's closed. It's not listening. It's not taking action. You resist what the community wants, and you have decided in your own mind what is best for us. What would be the benefit? There would be great benefit. The city would have, first of all, it would be a great gesture of responsiveness and transparency. First and foremost, you have nothing to lose on that. Let me open my phone here. It doesn't quite recognize my face sometimes with its mask on. Okay. So taking advantage of it could perhaps find some errors, some things that we could improve on, some things that we could clean up, some things that would move us up that ranking. Do we want to do that? Yes, we want to move up. We want to improve. okay? Getting together a little committee here or a little committee here, you might find something, but this would really help. There's nothing to lose, because even if there are errors, they can be righted, and we can be stronger and have a better fiscal future. That's all good for the city of Laverne, and no charge. How often do you get that chance? This is an assembly member of our state offering no charge to Laverne, and we're going to set it aside because everything looks good? I really don't understand that, because it's not about what you think. It's about what the people want and what's best for the people. Declining the state audit, which some of you say you want to do, that would result in a missed opportunity for a high-level audit that could possibly help Laverne improve its practices and ranking above the median in the city rankings. A no vote would lead to further mistrust, a lot further. You think it's bad now? You wait and see what happens if you turn it down. No opportunity to learn or improve, and confirmation that the council prefers to keep things clouded and resist resident or audit inquiries. City Council needs to take this opportunity on behalf of us, the people, who pay those bills, because this is the essence of transparency versus murky government. That's what I got to say.
Thank you, Ms. Berry.
Mr. Mayor, now we'll be talking into the same microphone, but she didn't have a mask on.
If we could keep your mask on, I would appreciate it. Mr. Bowen.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Lysol kills 99% of all germs. So, plus I'm vaccinated, so I feel pretty good about it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like some extra time based on the fact that it's been over a year since this came up, and based on the recent Holden response. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, the rules of this group says the mayor has the opportunity, is the only person that can grant more time. So if you want to read your own rules and abide by them, that would be great. Thank you. Sorry, I want to stay calm here. Just for the record, this morning, I sent a message and I said, I sent it to all council and the mayor. Can everybody hear me, by the way? This weekend, I reviewed many of the 363 pages of information provided in the packet for tonight's meeting. This is regarding the free state audit. I can't imagine that any council member would expect interested citizens to print 363 pages for discussion. Therefore, I'm requesting that the entire audit packet be available as a presentation, screen and pointer for citizens tonight to review. The point of the agenda item is to ask for public review and comment. Please confirm receipt of this. Needless to say, Tim Hepburn was the only one that responded, and obviously it has not been made public or for us to review. So we're here talking about 363 pages. I sat back here and I listened for the last hour, and I've heard words from Rick Crosby that he said the Holden letter said the city was perfect. That's a lie. And if you want to, luckily we have it on video. Also, I believe that Wendy Lau indicated that the city employees only work 32-hour week. I believe they work a 36-hour week. So as a council person, I would think you should be aware of that. And when you say stealing money, interesting that council people, I believe it was Ms. Lau, indicated a concern over stealing. Nobody ever said stealing. Who said that? It's an audit. Businesses get audited. Cities should be audited. Here is Holden's letter. Nowhere, Mr. Crosby, does it say the city's perfect. In fact, it says much different response. I don't want to read it, but I have 9 copies for anybody who would like to see it. It says Holden received a letter regarding 11 serious issues. They narrowed it down to 3 financial issues. My understanding was that many of the other concerns were outside the purview of Mr. Holden's office. So they narrowed it down to financial. And their concern was no bid contracts, specifically a 10-year contract extension with Waste Management with no bid. Employee retirement gifts, of which a lot of people didn't seem to know existed. Apparently it's signed into some regulation by Marty Lamelli in 1991. So for 30 years, the citizens of this city have been paying gifts for retired employees. Right or wrong, something somebody ought to know. But it also, in this case, it showed that it was ignored. And there was extra money spent. Where did that show up in the audit, as Pam just said? Money that was authorized. And by the way, it's our money. It's the citizens' money. It's not the city's money. The citizens give that money to the city in its taxes. The last one was they wanted to look at the Chase agreement. But because it is in litigation, they said they would not review that. They never said it wasn't going to be a good idea to look at it. They said because it was in litigation, they would not address it. I hope you know all this. He then said, and I'm reading from his letter, my staff contacted consultants for the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. That's the state's committee, which is authorized through the legislative rulemaking authority. They work independently. They review and take action on audit requests, which are submitted to the committee through the remaining inquiry and response process. It was confirmed that a no-bid 10-year contract with Waste Management was approved by the City Council. The city's purchasing policy requires a formal bid process for contracts worth more than $75,000 and notes that all contracts are subject to informal or formal bidding at a minimum of every 5 years. This city has authorized, I believe this current year, well over 20 contracts of no bid. Last year, 27, and the year before that, 22. So when you say everything's perfect, it's not. It also talks about the employee retirement gift in question exceeded the city's $2,500 limit. An undetected error that remained uncorrected until a citizen, by the way, that was me, made a citizen's public records request identifying the administrative oversight. On top of that, it was then later shown that the city manager indicated that he had thrown in $100 on when the check was written. The check was written in March. My inquiry was May 12th at approximately 8:30 in the morning. The city manager made his donation of $100, which was the amount over the limit, at about 1 p.m. the same day of my request. So if my request didn't go in, no money paid, it's overlooked. May not seem like a lot. It's $100, big deal. How many more are there? That's what an audit would do. It says, according to the California State Auditor, Laverne ranks 116th in the high-risk cities. This is a list of 450 cities, 1 being the worst, 450 being the best. We're 116. I find it interesting that the city manager now claims we're 170th, but Holden's office in the state says we're 116 or 17. Did the city manager go to Holden's office and say, you're incorrect? We're not nearly as bad as you say we are. We're 160 instead of 116. There's no communication that says you contacted Mr. Holden's office regarding that. Why not? The state audit has a long history of effective reports and recommendations that have made the after audit picture for cities better than prior to the audit. So my question is this: we also compared ourselves, they compared us to Maywood and San Gabriel of no bids, low bids, not adhering to their own rules. We talk about how we get approval every year, internal approval. I wonder what Maywood and San Gabriel, I wonder what they said prior to the state audit. I just can't imagine they didn't say they were all good too. I can't imagine that they said, oh, we don't need a state audit because we're perfect. Bull. We talk about what Mr. Holden says here. He says he won't pursue it because he doesn't think he should interfere with city politics. He doesn't say he can't pursue it. In fact, he makes it very clear he could. But he wants the city to do the right thing. And I hear just the nasty vitriol that Davis and Carter and all of you have for requests like this. You've been on the council, Lau and Crosby, for just a little over a year. What do you know about the last 10 years? What do you know about the last 15 years? We haven't done an audit. Why not? In fact, after Holden's letter to the city on July 9th, the city responded. In fact, it was Robin Carter and Rick Crosby. And they said, we appreciate the time taken to meet with us. We came out of the meeting with the understanding that you and your staff had concluded and felt that the city and city council were in control of the city finances. And it was only your desire to be a resource in the future. And then they go on to say, unfortunately, the letter we received does not seem to reflect that message. It seems to suggest a different narrative than stated in the meeting, and that the staff analysis was provided to us. We're not sure if we misunderstood your statements, but are concerned about the perception created by the language of the provided letter. Goes on to say, if we're incorrect, please let us know. Catherine Del Rosario, apparently a district, works for Holden's office, wrote back after that letter and said, basically, the letter we sent you is what we feel. There was no misunderstanding between her. Apparently, the misunderstanding was between the two people, the two council people that attended. On June 29th, Bob Russi sent a note and copied Bob Kress, Mark Alvarado, and Christy Lopez, and tries to put a nice spin to it. He says in the meeting with the assemblyman, he offered the following points. He's not interested in getting involved in local issues. It didn't say that. He doesn't want to get directly involved, but he does have the option. Over a year ago, May 18th, when this subject first came up, here's some of the comments that were made. Robin Carter, I don't like that the connotation of a forensic audit would mean, because there is no wrongdoing in the city. Muir Davis, a forensic audit is different than an annual audit. It's different than an ongoing audit. Generally, forensic audits are used when one is suspicious or concerned about a specific area that they can look into at more depth. All evidence before me says we are doing everything perfectly fine. Then why didn't Holden's audit committee confirm that? Wendy Lau said, I would be concerned about the use of our city funds to do something like that, especially given that the talks that we had about budget going in with a COVID issue and everything else affecting our money. So it was a concern that we didn't spend any money to do an audit. Rick Crosby said, my concern is the time that we're having, and we're elected to be good stewards of our finances as well. I believe the audits that we are doing, I believe the audits that we are doing really shows that Laverne has good stewards of the money. I feel right now a forensic audit should not happen and it would not be good stewards of our money for our residents today. So you said we shouldn't spend any money. Well, you've got an offer from the state of California to not spend any money. But for some reason, 4 of you seem to think that that's a terrible, terrible thing. The committee that Mr. Holden referred to, the State Joint Legislative Committee, they recommend that Mr. Holden gets to the point of submitting an audit request letter to the committee that the city will support, and that the city will support the request. In the absence of city support, it is then recommended to bring Senator Portantino into the fold. And they go on to show a chart where we stand 115 out of 450. Keep thinking about that. 26% from the bottom. They go on to say they have had a few special districts ask for audits after elections that have led to legislative reform. So during those audits, they saw things that they felt compelled enough to go back to the state legislature and change the law. Any audit would be broader than a single contract. Auditing contract policies and management practices in general would address the issues raised by the constituent. Again, Maywood. Laverne's compared to Maywood. And again, I won't read everything, but it says, as a result, the City Council allowed numerous financial and administrative problems, such as the city to failure to maximize revenue and its lack of most rudimentary internal controls to remain uncorrected. Wow. And this is who Olden's comparing us to. Other problems involve inadequate accounting and financial reporting caused by the former city manager's failure to implement fundamental internal controls, thereby exposing the city to risk of fraud or errors that would not be detected. Then we're compared to San Gabriel, who says San Gabriel had not adhered to policies requiring competitive bidding of contracts. I believe this was 2000. I know the city attorney, or I believe the city attorney worked for the city of San Gabriel. I don't know if he worked there during that period of time, but it would be interesting to know. Here's my notes from the 363 pages. Not going to bore everybody with this, but there are significant items in the Holden, in the packet that of information provided tonight, and most citizens obviously will not go through 363 pages. What I saw on tonight's agenda was to have a discussion. Then I heard, let's pull it and have a study session. But obviously 4 of the council people believe it's not worth having a study session even after all of this documentation. So I would be very interested to see what they end up talking about. And lastly, I'll just say quickly, based on the 363 pages submitted in tonight's packet, will the 4 council people, the mayor already wants an audit, agree to take the state up on their offer to assess and recommend improvements in the great city of Laverne? Will this council finally come together and listen to the citizens versus the city manager? We can only hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Anybody else wish to speak on this matter, and do we have anybody on the phone, JR? Please come up. If you just state your name and your address, then you can fill out a card when you're done, if you don't mind.
Okay,
No,
my name
when
is
you're-
Cynthia Tyner. I won't take 3 minutes. My comment is very brief, so it all balances out. Is that better? Okay, the state rating, whether it's 160 or 116 out of 450, I feel as a community and as a taxpayer, we deserve a lot better than that. It's simple. This is free. It may be a task that city employees will be burdened with, but we all have been given additional tasks at work or at home. Me as a parent, as a mother, I don't necessarily like disciplining my children, but it's a necessity. If I want to create good citizens, that's what I do. If you want to have fair and balanced treatment of our taxes, improving this system that we have is what we're going to have to do. Given the importance of this issue, it's a small sacrifice for the trust of the community. And Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for feeling this is a necessity for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Lily.
My name is Lily Breno. I was on the Zoom meeting just now, but I feel like I have to come because the technical problem, I couldn't hear well. So I come because this afternoon I tried to send email, and then I saw the email change, so it doesn't make any sense. So since my family decided to really retire in Laverne, I started to really do some research about what we live in. today is something about 50 town halls will be built on the Fruit Street, and then my kids will go school there, so it's very big concern. And then it was really busy, and then I tried to listen to 5 o'clock, what's that called? It's a pedestrian bridge of Gold Line, right? Oh, wow, it's a very fancy design. It's cool. And how much will it cost? I have a problem about number. I don't know, it's a 1.7 million or one more zero, or even go to like 800K, because I was so busy I couldn't see. And I want to catch up. Hey, how much will it cost? Because I heard very clear it's on our own. Okay, Gold Line only provide the design, and then the budget is on our own. I think our city is short the budget, right? We don't have enough money for fire department. We don't have enough money for this, for that. Do we really have the money for the fancy bridge? You know, I always number one concern is the safety for my kids. Have skateboard and the ride bike. So of course, if it have very good bridge for safety, that's perfect. But if it's a very expensive or fancy, it's not worth it. Actually, I was a designer. We do so many very beautiful projects in China, and I know it's not really cost that much. Okay, so I'm just thinking, if our city is really doing a very good job, let us be proud. So we'll just put on the sun, let everybody can see. Right, like come in a very beautiful bridge, everybody happy, and then so proud of the Laverne resident. So that's why I'm come here, because I'm thinking if tonight so many people come here, sit here to talk about we want audit, we want transparency, I will be really sad if I see 4-1 and turn down again. So that's what I learned from the last 2-3 years. So as a resident, we couldn't keep quiet, because I was born and come from a communist country. But I feel our freedom is to get away in America. I could feel like you zip up. Actually, there's some big news, like a white elephant. Last couple of days, all the big news about, voter fraud. But we couldn't talk about that. I couldn't post about that. I just zip, just like a born in the country, communist country. So because we couldn't even mention something we think is a voter fraud, we couldn't. Just like right now, if somebody think have some problem, for the last 10 years, 15 years, we want to know about it. We want to learn about the 300 pages, what's happening. I couldn't learn it to learn in English. Okay, I want to know what's happening in our city, because I'm going to retire here. So I will say it's a very necessary. It's very worth it. Don't mention it's free. It's because we need it. So I'm just present myself, okay, as a resident. My kids born here, my husband born here, they're not going to move anywhere. They already make the decision we're going to retire in America, retire in Laverne, okay? So I build my rose garden. I'm not going anywhere. I will come every single month. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Yes, Kathy.
Good evening, Kathy Kalusek. So we are not Maywood, and we're not San Gabriel. I think we have an excellent council, all 5 members, even though I don't always agree with all of them all the time. I disagree with those that would claim that 4 of the council members are always ganging up on the mayor. I think if Assemblyman Holden had concern with our finances, he would have sounded the alarm, and he would have made the audit happen. I don't think the audit is necessary, but this is going to keep coming up, and I just feel like it's in the best interest of the city just to go forward with the state audit so we can stop the arguments and we can move forward. I believe in our city's leadership. You all work so hard. I'm so sick of it. I see on social media all the time. They bash you guys all the time, and it makes me so angry. You guys work so hard. These people have no clue. The people on social media that are constantly berating you guys, they're not going to be running next year because they like to sit behind a computer and go, oh, they don't do anything. Oh, they're horrible. Vote them out. I'm sick of it. So anyway, I don't agree with it. I think our city leadership, all of you, I think you're excellent, but we need to move forward. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other comments? We're
Mr. Mayor, nothing else through email, and there are no hands raised via Zoom.
We're going to go ahead, unless anybody else wants to come up, we're going to close public comment and come back up to the dais. Where we at? Please.
I really do appreciate everyone's comments. There was a comment made, but I stated that Holden wrote that it's where we were in perfect control. That was his statement to me in our meeting. So I just want to make sure that was clear, because that was misstated up here. I appreciate, though, everyone's comments. I just the comments that we are in need of an audit because we don't have audits. We have audits every single year. Cities, school districts, every public agencies have audits every single year, and they are random audits. They are not chosen beforehand. So this whole idea that we never have an audit, that's why we need to have an audit, is not true. And so I just want to make sure that it's stated, and I'm ready to move forward.
Anyone else wish to speak more on the subject?
Sure.
Councilmember Davis.
Likewise, it's very important to have engagement in our community. Some of the engagement happens here, and some of the engagement happens outside of here. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bowen, but I read your email to say, Mr. Mayor, please confirm receipt of this. I didn't see council member. I thought you were CCing us as a gracious turn. So I read it and I saw it and I went, I see it's directed to the mayor, so I'm not going to jump in on this. So if that was my bad, then from now it does. It says, Mr. Mayor, please confirm. So, you talk about language and you talk about using words, and I just want to be clear with you why I did not reply to your... Right. And addressed to Mr. Mayor. And so I'm just saying that you talk about words and words being important, and I agree. I'm just expressing to you why I didn't reply to your email, because you asked the mayor to confirm. There are a lot of voices in here tonight. There are also voices that talk to me outside. I'm not somebody who sits in a closet and doesn't talk to anybody. I get that the passion brought people here tonight that want to see an audit or want to see a report. I think that there are things that the mayor and I can do on our finance committee to continue the process. We started it last year, and I think we've got some continually improvement to do, but I don't think it requires to have the state come in and do their performance.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Councilmember Lau.
I would just, it is a lot to sit through for all of you. It is a lot to sit through for all of us. So I do appreciate that you are out here, because it is 9 o'clock, and I understand that this is very important to you. But I would echo, Councilmember Davis's statements that I do talk to people, and this is not what everybody thinks. And so I want to be clear about that. It doesn't mean I appreciate you any less for being engaged. I'd rather have you be engaged and dialogue with me than without me. But I will also extend, to those of you who were very courteous and very polite and everything, and sitting here and listening through all this, I appreciate that. But I also think that there are things that we can do to be better, and I enumerated those in the discussion earlier on this evening, which may seem like it happened many moons ago at this point. But as indicated, we have a new director of finance whose part of her task is to evaluate where we are and where we can do better. We have a committee comprised of Councilmember Davis and our mayor, Tim Hepburn, who can sit and look through some of these policies and purchasing issues and identify where can we do better. And to the question of how do we know what is required or not required, as the mayor has indicated as well, our staff adheres to all the rules and all the regulations that are set forth. And so whatever we're putting forth is what is mandated and required of us and as of a city. Could we be better? Could we do better? Absolutely. And I believe that building those relationships between the council members and the staff to forward that motion is important. And so I thank you for your time, and you've heard my comments on this matter.
Thank you, Councilmember Lau. Councilmember Carter.
Yes. I'd like everyone to remember that we live here too. We care about the finances. That we have that vested interest where we pay attention to everything that goes on. And we wouldn't do anything if we felt it wasn't the best thing for the city. I think too much credit, blame, whatever you want to call it, given to our city manager is not justified. It's us five that make these decisions. It's us five that know that our main priority is policies and procedures. That's what our goal is when we were elected, and to represent the residents on what is best for our city. That's why I feel very strongly that this is not needed. There are bigger issues in our city that we need to focus on, and our time needs to be spent there. So I do not support this.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate all your comments. Thank you, everybody out in the audience and the people. Thank you very much.
May I make a motion, Mayor?
If you'd like to.
I'd like to move that we recognize that we have reviewed Assemblymember Holden's office, their recent review of the constituent request, and we choose not to move forward with the state auditor's independent audit of the city of Laverne.
I'll second that.
We vote? Thank you. Thank you. 4-1. Please, everybody, thank you. Nothing else. We're going to move to public comments. Joe, please.
Thank you. I have great problems hearing you, understanding you, because I have a definite hearing disability. I wear 2 hearing aids, and when mouths are covered, it's very difficult for me. So I miss a lot of what's going on. But I wanted to bring to your attention, I've spoken to Mrs. Carter about this. I live at Foothill Terrace, and in our communication box, which each home has, you can, with the manager's permission, you may put flyers in there. Not anyone from outside. That's forbidden. Last week, we got a 3-page flyer, and it has on the front all of your pictures, and then the 2 pages are from Vanessa Norwood about the new buildings that are coming. First, I called our park manager to see if he authorized the placement of this. He did not. He knew nothing about it. He said, check with the city, which of course I did. Nobody knew anything about it. I came down here and spoke to Vanessa Norwood. She had little to say. She just kept looking at it and doing this, this, and this. She didn't say much of anything. I did call Mrs. Carter because she has a relative that lives in our park, and she had gotten a call from her. I still don't know where this came from. I will leave a copy here with you, but I would like to know what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much, Ms. Wetton. Were you going to speak on? It's okay, Ms. Barry, you can come up. We will keep this, if we could, to 3 minutes,
right.
please.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's very short. Just a couple of things. Is there a possibility to have a policy or a procedure for spam or junk mail to be checked on a daily basis? Because I put in a public records request, and it sat there for more than a week before
before anybody found it. And I noted in some of the documents that I did get that some of Holden's items related to Holden or the emails between people, those went in junk also. And then, I think it's really important to check that daily because things can be time sensitive, especially if they're in advance of a meeting for people who want their comments read or whatever. And then also the issue with email today for people who wanted to comment. I'm sure there's probably a lot of stuff sitting there waiting, but I don't understand how one email address goes down, not the system, not the, usually it's not one. So I don't know. I seem to wonder if we can get some better checks and balances here. Just a thought.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Mr. Gabaldon.
If I may, if I have 30 seconds extra because of oversight to request to speak at an earlier meeting, if I may?
Sure.
So first of all, on a business note, I'd wonder why the city doesn't use the GoGov app to support city services and the accessibility of the city, especially considering that it creates efficiencies for city operations and access to the public in light of COVID and the inability to come in person. It seems like it's an appropriate investment by the city. The city of San Dimas invested $25,000, and I think the feedback is fairly positive. To the council, this mask is fogging up my glasses. I apologize for a second. I feel that watching tonight, we should reflect and look in the mirror. I hear the word animus a lot on Zoom meetings between council members, and I hear the tone of the voice, and it feels like it's coming across to the audience here as if we don't know what we're talking about or our opinions matter less. I know I can speak personally and professionally that I probably have more auditing experience than maybe anybody in this room at a very high level. But that doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people because their opinions outweigh our time limit. So to that, I'd like to continue with a comment that I wanted to make a few weeks ago. First of all, the timing is perfect. I want to acknowledge the Police Officers Association here in Laverne for the event that they held at the Heritage Park last week, Movie in the Park. It was a good time. The participation was probably less than they wanted, but they were there for us, so I appreciate them for that. It also reminded me that they put themselves in harm's way every day, and where they and their families never really know if they will come home. For this, I'd like to offer prayer for the families of those two officers shot last week in the line of duty in Chicago. We could all can reflect on our own personal time. To that event, just about a month ago, this council was asked for a vote of no confidence as it relates to the policies of Los Angeles District Attorney George Gaston. So I'll look you all in the eye when I say what I'm about to say. At that time, many of us were being ridiculed on Zoom for being emotional or having a political bias in that regard. Some council members stated their position of disagreement, trying to sell us on failed ideology, and others could not see the value of a no confidence vote, and if nothing else, principle. In my opinion, it was an easy vote where the safety of our neighbors and our citizens must always be our first priority. In every case, the victims and the families they leave behind should come before that of the criminal, no matter the color or the stripe. Today I stand before you and want to thank those council members who had the courage to see through a clear lens and lead with their vote of no confidence. To the others, that vote, since then, David O'Brown, the superintendent of police in Chicago, and Robert J. Conti, chief of Washington, D.C. Police, have both publicly spoken about their failure of the system, in their cities, where DAs failing to prosecute or hold criminals is leading to a total breakdown of law and order in their cities. This is the same plight we face in our greater Los Angeles, with an agenda-driven DA giving really no support to either the Sheriff's Department or city police agencies. Per the Officers Down memorial page, accessible to all of you, 60 officers have been killed in the line of duty by assault in 2021. The female officer killed in Chicago was killed by a man out on probation for a previous offense and who was awaiting trial on a second offense committed just weeks earlier, then cowardly shooting that officer in the face. Another officer was also shot in the eye and shoulder. Perhaps he will not make it. I have heard no mention of riots on behalf of these officers, nor requests to protest down the streets of Laverne. Officers are killed regularly in the line of duty without a peep from those who would otherwise comment on defunding the police or speaking out loud about how bad police are. Perhaps you will sleep tonight knowing that they are making your dreams are pleasant, making sure your dreams are pleasant, while criminals see them as the target. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Catherine Butler, did you want to speak on?
I don't have any more comments about the other topic, but I have one piece of information.
Please.
That I don't have any information about. I just want to alert you, and I will come back. This evening, just before I left my home, a person from Pomona came to inform me that something is happening between the town of Pomona and Caravan or something like that. I sent her away saying I'm late in getting my makeup on, and so
Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that.
Yes, for me it would be a very bad thing. Anyway, I want to let you know that as the unofficial monitor of White Avenue, I will look into it and I will bring you whatever information I can find. It sounds like some of you know a lot more than I do, but it sounded like about 200 trucks up and down White Avenue, and I think we need to know about it. So with your permission, I'll try to get information and be back in touch.
Thank you very much. I think our city manager is aware of Carvana, and he's worked. I'll let him comment on it. Any other public comment? Mr. Bowen. Oh.
Try to make this one short. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to direct this question to the city attorney. A few months ago, or I don't know, a month or so ago, Councilperson Lau and Crosby brought up the fact that the city manager is living outside the city, outside of the terms of his hiring agreement. I took the opportunity to look up the municipal code, and under Title II, Administration and Personnel, Chapter 2.04 for the city manager, powers and duties, various, but the very first one, A, to see that all laws and ordinances of the city are duly enforced, and that all franchises, permits, licenses, privileges granted by the city are faithfully performed and observed. Then I looked at Administrative Personnel City Manager 2.04.020, Residence and Eligibility Requirements. At the time of the appointment of the city manager, residence in the city shall not be required, but within 12 months thereafter, the city council shall require that the city manager, if his resident is not in Laverne, shall reside within a 5-mile radius of the city hall. The city attorney spoke regarding Crosby and Lau's comments, and he even said, I believe he said 7.4 miles, something like that. And his term, from a legal standpoint, was close enough. So my question is this. If the city manager for 9 years has violated the municipal code, of which his first duty is to make sure it is adhered to, then what does anything else mean? So am I incorrect? Is this not the city municipal code as it currently stands, and has the city manager violated that agreement for over 9 years?
Do you wish to respond? Is he done? Are you done, Mr.?
I'd love to hear the answer.
Well, I'm not going to engage with you.
No.
You're not going to engage with me?
Is that Is that all?
That is a question for the city attorney, so he will not respond.
Mr. Kress?
If you're done speaking and wish to sit down, I will talk.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Remarks, not entirely accurate, but you were here. The council has given the city manager a 12-month notice. What you read requires city council action, which they took several meetings ago. I'm just,
Mr. Bowen, let him finish, please.
I am finished. That's enough.
And would you like to please come up?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Mr. Russi, JR. My wife and I moved to Laverne in 1970. We've lived here over 50 years. My wife and I moved to Laverne in 1970, over 50 years ago. Our son was just born, and he is currently a detective with the Lamona Police Department working sex crimes, which is a horrible job, really. And I've always been proud to live in Laverne. I am tonight. I was very proud to sit here and listen to the council members and engage in a conversation here. Engaged very candidly, openly, had done a lot of research on it. They were very polite and considerate in their conversations. Many of the speakers got up here tonight, and I agreed a lot of things that Mayor Hepburn said. I agreed a lot of things with Council Member Murr or Mayor Pro Tem Muir Davis, and with Council Member Lowell and Council Member Crosby and Council Member Carter. I agreed with some of what every one of you presented. I even agreed with a lot of the things that people said tonight. Said had a different viewpoint, and I have a different viewpoint. And I was very pleased about that. But at the same time, I also was very disappointed in some of the insults and verbal attacks made upon each of you that sit up here. And I want to make that clear that I find that's inappropriate. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Do we have? Oh.
Mr. Mayor, it doesn't appear that we have any other emailed requests. There are no hands raised on the Zoom function. I think that's all the public comment that we have.
We'll close public comment and come up to the desk. Did you want to respond?
There's a couple that I can respond to that
Please.
came up, if you'd like. The first is in regards to this flyer. The mayor had shared it with me, I think it was last week. While these two notices are notices that were put out by the city, they were just these notices. This piece right here was not put out by the city, so I honestly don't know who sent it. We send these as part of the notification for the projects that were listed, so I wish I could help you more on that, but that should clarify where the letter came from.
And Mr. Rusty, would your notice gone to their park or that outside their?
I don't know what their distance is. It could have gone, but if it did, it would have gone to the park manager. It wouldn't have necessarily have gone to the individual.
And a comment on that. Those tubes in the communities that we're talking about are not mailboxes. They're just tubes for information for the residents. Someone would have to physically put those in there, not a mail carrier. It has to be an individual. So that's the big differentiation.
It wasn't the city.
I'm just saying that it has to be an individual that puts those in. Sometimes they get approval, sometimes they don't. We know how that works, so.
Yeah,
that's
and
just
also with that too is because I was telling Joe that when she called me is that that's not even correct because it was notification of a planning commission. So the people on the planning commission should have been on the page because it hasn't come to council. We don't know all the details yet. To planning commission makes a recommendation. So.
Actually, it was just a notice of the homes that are the proposed, I think it's Brandywine, and then there was some other for proposed baseline, on Baseline Road, there's how many homes? 13? 12? Anyway, it was just that, and it was, don't know why, but they had some great pictures of us. I mean, it was nice. It just, we had no, we had, we did good, actually, but it was just like, as Ms. Wetton said, why are they doing this? You shouldn't be doing that unless they had approval by the park manager. But generally speaking, that's a no-no. You just don't do that. So we'll see what we can find out, but.
Second one for clarification, thank you on the junk email. We'll look at having, especially those that have comments coming in, but the email system as a whole was down today. It wasn't just one select email, it was our entire system. So we stood up a temporary solution to try and engage public comment. It came up before before this meeting got going, so we were able to still get those. And then the last comment about Carvana, yes, we've had a challenge with Carvana as well with the amount of traffic. We sent a cease and desist. Thankfully, the CHP stood up a commercial task force about 2 weeks ago and pointed out that the larger trailers, the multi-carrier trailers, cannot even be on a truck route. They can only be on a terminal access route, which was news even to Carvana. So we have conveyed that message to them and that they should not be using White Avenue for any of that. So the individual car carriers are not prohibited, but the larger car carriers are.
If the residents see those car carriers, a phone call would be nice, probably. If
I actually have a couple, and so don't hesitate to share it with me. I have somebody that's kind of counting those and sending them to me on a weekly basis.
The large ones.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen the small singles, but I mean, if you see these large ones, you know, and there's a whole other story going on about the Carvana. And if you don't know what Carvana is, it is the vending machine style 8-story glass structure that the car, you put a coin in, and the car, you go and make an appointment. The cars have been surveyed and, you know, checked out. You put the coin in, and my son bought a car there this weekend, so I'm really good at it. Put the coin in, and all of a sudden, the car that's up there, it's, you know, for your appointment, turns around, the whole lift comes up, the car goes on the lift, it turns around, comes down, lights go on, it spins around and shows you the car, then they have an exit A or an exit B, and the person drives it out for you to pick up. The transaction was literally 15 minutes. But as an operator, please tell us if you see the trucks with the big trucks, because that's not what's supposed to happen. So anyway, there you go. More than you needed. No more public comment. We are going to move to council comments and conference meeting reports. Who would like to start? Mr. Crosby, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council and from the contract for our new fire chief tonight. I really do appreciate that we can move forward. And I believe this is happening, but we had some awesome 12-year-old girls do some great things here for Laverne with our Little League softball team representing Laverne and almost going all the way to their championship, and they represented our state as well. So I think we are going to do it, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge them and bring them forward because they did some great things this past summer. And thank you for the meeting tonight.
And we have worked with Coach, and we have them scheduled to come your second meeting in September. At 6 o'clock time doing that ceremony.
Councilmember Carter.
I'm going to save my comments till next time about just what's been going on in the city. I just want to really say I'd love for everybody to not leave until the very end. We're going to be closing in memory of a very special person in this community. So I'd love for everyone to stay in here.
Thank you. Councilmember Lau.
I wanted to share, and some of you may already be aware of this program that is in our city, but I think it's pretty cool. It was brought to my attention by an RSVP named Marv Weston. If you don't know Marv, he is not only an awesome volunteer with our retired senior volunteer patrol, but he's also a fantastic photographer. So you might see him out and about taking photos. But he shared with me that he and his wife helped to bring the You Are Not Alone program to the city of Laverne. And so essentially, if you're a senior who lives alone in Laverne, or you have parents or friends who live alone in the city, and you want them to know that they're not alone, these senior citizen volunteer patrol folks will, it's been a little bit truncated because of the pandemic, but will make visits to check in on you or your family member or friend. I know they were making a lot of calls during the pandemic when in-person visits weren't available, but I think that shows what an awesome community we have, that we have people that care about each other. This is a program that they brought over from another city. It's free, and it's really, like I said, I think it really talks about the care that is evident in our community members. And so there is a phone number, and I hope you can hear it okay if you're interested in using it for anyone you know, or for yourself. It's 909-407-2589, or you can email at yana@lvpd.org. And if you see Marv out and about, say hello. Similarly, I want to say thank you for everybody who hung out with us tonight. I know it's late. I know the air's been kicking on and off. So sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's not.
It's not cool right now.
No, it's not cool right now. But I do also want to let you know, too, that this council has spent a lot of time talking about how we can do better together as a unit. And that means building relationships with each other and being kind to each other and trying to be courteous with each other. That doesn't mean that we will always agree, because we just won't. If you look at the history of our voting, we had a 3-2, we had 4-1s, we've had 5-0s, we've had the gamut. And so the important thing is, can we have a civil conversation where we can express our viewpoints freely in a safe space so that we can understand each other's perspectives? And maybe that helps us to be better as we move forward. And that's what I really want to commend this council for. So I know that there's a lot of talk out there that people think, oh, it's a coalition against him, or, Muir and Wendy, are doing this, or whoever is doing what. That's simply not the case. We are doing our best to work together because we know that's what's best for this community. And we appreciate those of you who understand that and are helping to model the way by being engaged citizens and committing to constructive dialogue. So thank you for that. Like I said, you don't know what happens behind closed doors in terms of, these council members have really been there for me with my dad getting COVID earlier. Each and every single one of us has had something personal happen, and we've been there for each other. So I don't want you to think that there aren't human beings that sit up here that help to try to make the best decisions possible for this city. So thank you for your time tonight. I know you might be hungry, hot, tired, etc.
Are you talking about yourself?
A little bit. I was like, I told you to look.
Thank you, Councilmember Dell. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with everything everybody said, and I'll also concur in advance of what our mayor is going to share with us, even though I have no idea what he's going to say.
You're just reading through me?
I trust you in some sense. Some sense I'm having trouble, but just to be candid and clear with everybody, I too want to thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in our community. This is important. Don't feel as though this is the only avenue that you have to get a hold of me. I won't commit my fellow council members, but I am available. I'm not a monster in a closet. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and share deeper thoughts than what I share here on the dais tonight. I do think about this. I think we all think about this stuff very seriously. So when we come and have these conversations, some of them are quite easy because we're all aligned. Some of them are more challenging. And so, there is an adage that nobody likes to see the sausage being made, but welcome to the sausage making. So thank you for participating. Hopefully you haven't lost your appetite. And the last two pieces I'll say are, I appreciate the fact that people have been vaccinated and are sharing that information. That's helpful. The Delta variant is holding strong, but there's another one coming out that we're not quite sure about yet. It originated in South America called COVID Lambda. They're not quite sure how robust or pronounced that is, but new information is coming out that potentially, because of Lambda, there may be booster shots that are going to be recommended by the CDC. So I would like to feel as though COVID's almost over. I would like to feel as though it's indoors that's causing us stress, but when I really look at the research and look at the information, and I think Wendy hit it on the head, none of us are immune to it. It's this uncertainty of this global pandemic that's causing a huge amount of stress. So I would just encourage each and every one of us, and I try to do it, although I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. If anybody tells you that Councilmember Davis thinks he's smarter than everybody or more perfect than everybody, please know they're making that up. I do not profess to be perfect in any way. I do my best, and that's limited. So please take care of each other, be well, and thanks again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. You know, sometimes we have heated discussion. I think tonight was not heated, but a very open discussion. It's not always going to go our way, as Councilmember Lau so gracefully stated. We'll get there. Persistence. I never give up. I don't think any of us ever give up. We all work hard at this. Our hearts are in it. It's just sometimes we have a difference of opinion, but at the end of the day, it's nice to have you guys here. It's nice to have us here. Even with COVID, it's nice to have the discussion, and I do appreciate that very much. It's nice to see people. It's nice to be, and the meetings last long, whatever. I'm used to this now. I'm not a rookie anymore. We've had to sit in some of the meetings, let's say 8 hours? Yeah, we have. Yeah, you just don't remember. Anyway.
Never as long as Claremont.
No, that's true. Anyway, I just want to thank my council. I do appreciate all their input. We're not going to always agree, but we agree to disagree. And I do take seriously what the residents say, and I know my council does too, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Couple items. U of V had their freshman orientation this morning. What a kick. It was so nice to see the school alive. You know, they're outside in the quad, right by the new Spot Cafe between the two buildings and the new housing. It was wonderful. It was a couple hundred people. I was able to speak for a little bit, and just a great group. It's just nice to see that things are somewhat getting back to normal in the young people. And most of those people, that there was 200 or 300 probably, they all were online. They were all online, put their applications in, and they came today for their freshman orientation. So kudos to the University of Laverne, and that was great. Concerts in the park. We had Cold Duck last night. It was the last series, reduced series, obviously because of COVID. They were amazing. You know, the Answer's awesome. Cold Duck did a really, really good job. So kudos to them. Also Saturday, I was able to attend a double Eagle Scout pinning ceremony over at the Methodist Church across the street. And I didn't bring my card, and there's two young gentlemen that actually got their Eagle Scout badges in 2020, and they were to celebrate. So we're at the Methodist Church, we were able to celebrate them. And that's just a huge accomplishment for two young men and the families that were behind them, and the whole scouting group and all the families that support them. So that was a lot of fun, and we will move on. Did you have Mr. Russi? No.
We do have a closed session. I was waiting for you.
Can I finish?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know if that's what you were asking me.
I'm not done yet.
Let's work together.
Yeah, let's work together. We have a reason for a closed session tonight, Mr. Russi?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do need a closed session in conference with labor negotiator under Government Code Section 54957.6.
We will,
nothing to report out.
Yes, we will be recessing into closed session. We will not be reporting out. We're going to adjourn in the memory of Joe Torsha, as Councilmember Carter had so graciously stated. Longtime Laverne resident who passed away on Friday, July 9th, 2021. Joe was born on May 25th, 1949, in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Joe and his wife Kathy, along with their two daughters, Carrie and Lori, moved to Laverne in April 1978, where he resided in the same home for 43 years. Joe began his involvement with the youth sports in 1986. He held many positions in the LV-SD Pop Warner Football Executive Board. From 1991 to 1995, Joe was also actively involved at Bonita High School. His wife was the rally advisor, and he quickly and he quickly earned the title of Rally Dad. Joe served as one of the founding members of the Sports Park Committee. He was instrumental in the rehabilitation of Glen Davis Stadium in 1996, the renovation of the Laverne Aquatic Center in 1997, and the building of the skate park. He received the first Jim Scranton Pride of Laverne Award in 1999. That's amazing. That's incredible. Joe served as a member of the Laverne Heritage Foundation, where he helped bring the windmill to the park with many enjoy today. Throughout his life, Joe has many career adventures ranging from owning a Union 76 gas station in Alhambra, an auto repair shop in San Dimas, working as a bus mechanic for the Covina Valley School District, and a motor carrier specialist for the California Highway Patrol. He retired from the CHP in May 2015. He's survived by his wife of 52 years, Kathy, his daughters Carrie Haas and Lori Young, his son-in-laws Mike Haas and Mike Young, and his pride and joy grandchildren, Sadie, Cheyenne, Madison, Mason, and Garrett. Joe, you will be truly missed. Our next scheduled meeting will be September 7th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m.
6.
Six for the badge pinning.
We have,
A badge pinning at 6.
oh,
Are you going to adjourn?
where's that?
It was just added.
I know, but it's not here. And we will adjourn to 6 o'clock p.m. for a badge pinning on September 7th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. And we are adjourned at,
Recess.
well, recessing into closed session. Our next, there we go.